Hey everyone, tonight we're stepping into Middle-earth to uncover one of its most intriguing hidden mysteries, the kind of secret that has been whispered about in the quiet corners of the Shire where ancient bloodlines run deeper than anyone imagined, and the very earth itself holds memories of powers long forgotten. It's a story filled with unexpected revelations about why a simple hobbit could accomplish what kings and wizards could not, carry the One Ring without falling to its corruption. So before we begin this journey together, take a moment to hit that like button if you're ready for tonight's adventure into the deeper mysteries of Tolkien's world. And don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy these explorations into the hidden lore of Middle-earth. Drop a comment and let me know what part of the world you're listening from. I love seeing our global community come together for these stories. Now get comfortable, maybe adjust your lighting, settle into your favorite spot, and let's begin tonight's journey into the ancient secrets of the Shire. In the depths of Rivendell's greatest archive, where even the keenest elven eyes rarely venture, there lies a conversation recorded in the flowing script of the Elder Days. Two figures sit in the dying light of the Second Age, their voices heavy with the weight of prophecy and loss. Gandalf the Grey leans forward, his weathered hands tracing patterns on an ancient map, while Elrond half-elven watches with eyes that have seen the rise and fall of kingdoms. The bloodline survives. Gandalf whispers, his voice carrying a tremor of wonder. Hidden among the small folk, as was foretold, they carry within them the last echo of Númenor's glory, though they know it not. Elrond's expression grows grave, starlight catching the tears that glisten unshed in his ancient eyes. The blood of my brother flows still through Middle-earth, but in such humble vessels will they remember when the time comes. Will the fire of the West burn bright enough to resist the shadow? That, Gandalf replies, is what we must discover. For if the old songs speak true, then the fate of all Middle-earth may rest not with the mighty, but with those who have forgotten their own greatness. The parchment crackles as Elrond's fingers trace a path across the map, following the winding roads that lead to a small green land marked simply as the Shire. His voice drops to barely a whisper, as if speaking the words aloud might shatter the fragile hope they represent. 3,000 years we have waited. 3,000 years since the last ship sailed from Númenor's burning shores. The kings are gone. The palaces lie beneath the waves, and the mighty have passed into legend. Yet here, in this quiet corner of the world, the noblest blood of the Second Age tends gardens and bakes bread, utterly unaware that they carry the salvation of Middle-earth in their very veins. Gandalf's eyes blaze with sudden intensity, and for a moment the grey pilgrim appears as he truly is, a Maya of Valinor clothed in humble flesh. The Valinor work in ways that confound even the wise. They preserved what was most precious by hiding it in plain sight. The courage of kings, the wisdom of the blessed, the divine spark that could resist the corruption of the ring itself, all dwelling in the heart of a simple hobbit who believes himself ordinary. But will he accept the burden? Elrond asks. And now his voice carries the weight of all the ages. When the time comes, when the ring must be carried into the very heart of darkness, will this hidden heir of Númenor find the strength his ancestors possessed, or will the shadow claim him as it has claimed so many others? The archive falls silent, save for the whisper of turning pages and the distant sound of elven voices singing lamentations for the lost. Neither figure speaks the name that hangs between them like a star waiting to be born. Neither dares to voice the hope that burns in their hearts like a candle flame in a vast darkness. Frodo Baggins of Bag End, they know, carries more than the burden of the ring. He carries the last hope of a drowned kingdom, the final echo of a civilization that chose sacrifice over survival. In his small hands rests not just the fate of Middle-earth, but the vindication of every choice made by those who came before, every sacrifice offered on the altar of the greater good. The secret lies buried deeper than the roots of the old forest, hidden beneath centuries of deliberate obscurity. For the Shire was never just a refuge for the small and simple. It was a sanctuary for something far more precious. A hidden vault where the Valar themselves placed their most treasured hope, the blood of the West, the divine spark of Númenor, preserved in the humblest of vessels, waiting for the moment when Middle-earth would need its forgotten kings to rise once more. But this is a truth that few have ever known, and fewer still have dared to speak. Tonight we will uncover the hidden threads that connect a simple hobbit hole to the throne of Númenor, the ancient bloodlines that flow like underground rivers through the peaceful hills of the Shire, and the cosmic design that made Frodo Baggins the only being in Middle-earth capable of bearing the ring to its destruction. This is the story of the last echo of Númenor, walking barefoot through Middle-earth, carrying the salvation of all free peoples in his gentle heart. This is the tale of how the highest nobility found its truest expression in the simplest of lives, and how the Valar's greatest gamble paid off in ways that even they could never have foreseen. The mystery begins here, in the green hills of the Shire, where ancient stones sweep beneath hobbit gardens, and where the blood of kings flows quietly through the veins of gardeners and bakers, millers and matham keepers. Tonight, we will discover why Frodo Baggins was never just a simple hobbit, and why his journey to Mount Doom was not just an act of courage, but the fulfillment of a destiny written in the stars themselves. The secret of the ring-bearer awaits, hidden in the space between what the world believes and what the wise have always known. Let us begin this journey together, into the heart of Middle-earth's greatest mystery, where the smallest of folk carry the greatest of legacies, and where the true nobility of the West lives on in the humblest of hearts. The morning mist clings to the rolling hills of the Shire like ancient memories refusing to fade. And as you stand at the edge of Hobbiton, something feels different about this familiar landscape. You are a scholar of genealogies, a keeper of bloodlines and forgotten histories, drawn to this quiet corner of Middle-earth by whispers of mysteries that run deeper than hobbit holes and older than the Green Dragon's finest ale. The early light catches on something that makes you pause. There, half buried in the garden wall of Bag End, is a stone that doesn't belong. Its surface bears the faint trace of carved symbols, worn smooth by centuries of weather, but unmistakably crafted by hands that knew arts the Shire has long forgotten. The hobbit hole itself sits like a green jewel in the hillside, but your trained eye notices how it's positioned, how the round door faces not just east for the morning sun, but toward a specific point on the horizon where ancient maps once marked sacred places. The scent of pipe smoke drifts from the direction of the old mill, and you follow it down the winding path, past gardens where roses bloom with unusual vigor, their roots drawing strength from soil that holds more than simple earth. Every step reveals new details that speak of hidden depths. The cobblestones beneath your feet are laid in patterns that echo the great roads of the elder days, and the wells that dot the landscape are carved from stone that bears the same weathered marks as the ruins of Fornost. Your quest began months ago, in the archives of Minas Tirith, where a chance discovery led you to question everything the world believes about the simple folk of the Shire. A fragment of parchment, filed away among genealogical records, contained a list of names that should have been impossible. Baggins, Took, Brandybuck, Gamgee, all written in the flowing script of Númenor, dated to the final years before the Great Island's destruction. The implications were staggering, but the evidence was unmistakable. Now, as you walk through the heart of the Shire, you see signs everywhere of a truth that has been hidden in plain sight. The architecture speaks of influences far older than hobbit tradition. The placement of villages follows patterns that mirror the sacred geography of Númenor itself. Even the names of the rivers carry echoes of the Western tongue, corrupted by time but preserving their ancient meaning for those who know how to listen. At the edge of the mill pool, you encounter your first guide. An elderly hobbit sits on a stone bench, his weathered hands tracing patterns in the dirt, with a walking stick carved from wood that gleams like starlight. His eyes, sharp as winter air, fix on you with an intensity that suggests he's been waiting for your arrival. "You're the one asking questions about the old families," he says, his voice carrying the weight of years and secrets. "Name's Tolman Cotton, though most folk call me Old Tom. My family's kept records longer than most, back to the days when the Shire was new and the boundaries were set by those who knew the old ways." His knowing smile tells you that your reputation as a genealogist has preceded you, but there's something more in his expression, a depth that speaks of knowledge carefully guarded. As he rises from the bench, you notice the way starlight seems to gather around him despite the morning hour, and how the very air grows still when he speaks, as if the land itself pauses to listen. "If you're truly seeking the truth about our bloodlines," he continues, "then you'll need to understand that the Shire's foundations run deeper than any furrow, and our roots stretch back to shores that no longer exist. But such knowledge comes with a price. Are you prepared to learn that everything you thought you knew about the simple folk of the Shire might be the greatest deception in all of Middle-earth's history?" As if summoned by his words, a second figure emerges from the shadows of the old forest's edge, tall and gray-cloaked, moving with the silent grace of the rangers of the north. He approaches with a hand resting lightly on his sword hilt. His weathered face bears the marks of years spent watching the borders, but his eyes hold a recognition that suggests your arrival was expected. "Strider's the name most know me by," he says, his voice carrying the accent of the northern kingdoms. "Though I've walked these lands longer than most realize, keeping watch over treasures that few suspect exist. The Shire's boundaries are guarded by more than green hedges and flowing water. We rangers know the truth of what lies sleeping beneath these peaceful hills." The mist begins to lift as the three of you stand together, and the landscape reveals itself in all its deceptive simplicity. Rolling green hills stretch to the horizon, dotted with hobbit holes that seem to grow from the earth itself. But now you see the patterns, the way the ancient barrows form perfect circles around settlements, how the roads follow lines of power that thrum with subtle energy, and how certain gardens bloom with flowers that should not grow in this climate. Their seeds carried from lands that exist now only in memory. "The blood of the West flows through these hills," Strider continues, his voice dropping to a whisper that carries despite its softness. "Hidden in the humblest of vessels, preserved by choices made in the darkest hour of the Second Age, the Valar themselves wove this deception, and we few are its guardians." Old Tom nods slowly, his eyes reflecting depths you hadn't noticed before. 3,000 years we've kept the secret. 3,000 years since the last ships sailed from Númenor's burning shores. The kings chose exile over empire, nobility over power, and their blood flows still through the veins of those who tend gardens and bake bread, utterly unaware of the greatness they carry. The morning air grows thick with possibility and dread. You came seeking answers to academic questions, but you sense that what you're about to discover will shake the very foundations of everything Middle-earth believes about its own history. The Shire spreads before you like a living map, each hobbit hole a potential gateway to secrets that have been buried deeper than the roots of the old forest. Somewhere in the distance, a cock crows, and the sound carries across the hills like a challenge to the dawn. The mist continues to lift, revealing a landscape that seems ordinary to casual eyes, but thrums with hidden power to those who know how to look. Ancient stones sleep beneath gardens, old songs echo in the wind, and the very earth remembers the footsteps of those who once walked as kings but chose to live as gardeners. Your true journey is about to begin, into the heart of the Shire's greatest mystery, where the blood of drowned Númenor flows through the veins of hobbits, who believe themselves the simplest of folk, and where the fate of all Middle-earth was decided not by the mighty, but by those who had forgotten their own greatness. The secret of the ring bearer awaits, hidden in the space between legend and truth, between what the world believes and what the wise have always known. And as you stand here in the growing light of a Shire morning, you realize that everything you thought you knew about the War of the Ring is about to change forever. The decision crystallizes in your mind like dew forming on spiderwebs at dawn. You will uncover the truth behind the bloodlines, no matter where it leads or what ancient oaths of secrecy you must navigate. The implications of what old Tom and Strider have revealed are too profound to ignore, and the scholar in you burns with the need to understand how such a monumental deception could have been maintained for 3 millennia. I accept the quest, you say, your voice carrying across the morning air with surprising resonance. Whatever the cost, whatever the consequences, I must know the truth about the blood that flows through the Shire. Old Tom's weathered face creases into a smile that seems to hold the weight of ages. Then we begin where all true stories begin, with the ending that made the beginning possible. Come, there are records hidden in places that most folk never think to look, and artifacts that carry the memory of choices made in darkness and desperation. He leads you away from the mill pool, following a path that winds between ancient barrows whose grass-covered mounds rise like sleeping giants from the earth. The way is familiar to any hobbit, a common route for mushroom gathering and quiet walks, but Strider's presence transforms it into something else entirely. His eyes scan the landscape with the intensity of one who sees threats and treasures that others miss entirely. The barrows are older than the Shire, Strider explains as you walk, but they're not what they seem. Some were built by the Dunedain who came before the hobbits, marking places where the earth itself remembers the touch of Númenor. Others were raised by the hobbits themselves, though they've forgotten why they felt compelled to build them in these exact locations. The path leads to a barrow that looks identical to all the others, but old Tom approaches it with reverence that borders on ritual. He places his hand on a stone that appears to be natural but bears the faint traces of carving, and whispers words in a language that sounds like wind through distant trees. The stone shifts with surprising ease, revealing a passage that descends into darkness scented with the memory of sea spray and starflowers. "The first cache," Tom says, his voice echoing strangely in the entrance. "Hidden here by those who knew the importance of preserving truth for future generations. Mind your step. The way is older than the Shire, and remembers feet that walked differently than ours. The passage opens into a chamber that takes your breath away. The walls are lined with niches containing scrolls and artifacts, but more striking is the chamber itself. The ceiling bears a map of stars that seem to pulse with their own light, constellations that show the night sky as it appeared over Númenor in its final days. The floor is inlaid with patterns that mirror the great palaces of the drowned kingdom, and the air carries traces of incense that was burned in temples beneath the waves. "Behold the archive of echoes," old Tom says, his voice heavy with ceremony. "Built by the first hobbits who came to the Shire, though they called themselves by different names then, they knew they carried something precious, something that needed to be preserved even if it could never be openly acknowledged." You move deeper into the chamber, drawn by a manuscript that lies open on a reading stand carved from a single piece of white wood. The text is written in the flowing script of Númenor, but the words are familiar, a genealogy that traces bloodlines with meticulous care. Your eyes widen as you recognize names that appear in every hobbit family tree, but here they're preceded by titles that speak of nobility and ancient honor. The Falahides. You breathe, your finger tracing the elegant script. They weren't just one of the 3 breeds of hobbits. They were the House of Elros himself, the descendants of Tom and Atchett, the first king of Númenor. Strider nods gravely. The blood of the half-elven flows through the Shire, though few who carry it know their heritage. The Tooks, the Brandybucks, the Bagginses, all descended from the royal houses that chose exile over destruction. They came to Middle-earth not as refugees, but as guardians of something more precious than crowns or kingdoms. The manuscript reveals more secrets with each page. The Harfoots, supposedly the most common of hobbit folk, trace their lineage to the guildmasters and lore-keepers of Númenor, those who preserved knowledge and wisdom when the palaces fell. The stores, hardy and practical, descended from the shipwrights and sea captains who knew the secret paths between the waves and chose to make their home by rivers that reminded them of the harbors they had lost. But why hide it, you ask, your voice filled with wonder and confusion? Why choose obscurity over honor? Why let the world believe they were simple folk when they carried the blood of the mightiest kingdom in Middle-earth's history? Old Tom's expression grows sad, and he gestures to another section of the archive, where darker artifacts rest in shadowed niches, because they remembered what pride had cost their ancestors. The downfall of Númenor was not just a natural disaster, it was the consequence of forgetting that true nobility comes not from power, but from service. The survivors swore an oath, witnessed by the Valar themselves, to preserve the best of what they had been while abandoning the worst. A scroll unfurls at his touch, revealing text that makes your heart race. It's a prophecy written in the mixed script of Númenor and the Grey Elves, speaking of a time when the hidden blood would be revealed, when the least of the kingdoms would provide the greatest hope for Middle-earth's salvation. When the Ring of Power shall wake, the prophecy reads, and the shadows stretch forth its hand to claim dominion over all free peoples, then shall the blood of the West be tested in the fire of its own making. Not from the mighty shall salvation come, but from the meek who have forgotten their strength. The smallest of hands shall bear the greatest burden, and the humblest of hearts shall prove the noblest of all. The words seem to shimmer on the parchment, and you realize with growing awe that you're reading a prophecy that was fulfilled within living memory. The War of the Ring, the destruction of Sauron, the salvation of Middle-earth itself, all achieved by a hobbit who never knew he carried the blood of kings in his veins. Frodo Baggins, you whisper, and the name echoes through the chamber like a prayer. He was never just a simple hobbit, he was the last heir of Númenor, carrying the divine grace of the Valar themselves, walking barefoot across Middle-earth to fulfill a destiny written in the stars. Strider's hand falls on your shoulder, and his touch carries the weight of confirmation. Now you begin to understand why the Rangers have watched the Shire for so long, why Gandalf chose as he did, and why the elves wept when they saw a hobbit bearing the ring. They recognized what few others could see, the return of the king in the most unlikely of forms. The chamber seems to pulse with renewed energy, and you feel the weight of millennia pressing down on your shoulders. The simple questions that brought you to the Shire have blossomed into revelations that challenge everything you thought you knew about the War of the Ring, about the nature of heroism itself, and about the ways in which the divine moves through the world. But even as the first mysteries unfold, you sense that deeper secrets await discovery. The archive holds more than genealogies and prophecies. It holds the keys to understanding how the Valar themselves shaped the fate of Middle-earth, working through the humblest of servants to achieve the salvation of all free peoples. The journey has truly begun, and ahead lies a path that will lead you through the hidden history of the Shire, into the secret counsels of the wise, and ultimately to the truth that transformed a simple hobbit into the savior of the world. The blood of Númenor flows through these peaceful hills, and its story is about to be revealed in all its tragic glory. The archive of echoes reveals its secrets slowly, like a flower blooming in the depths of winter. As you delve deeper into the chamber, each artifact and manuscript builds upon the last, creating a tapestry of hidden truth that grows more intricate with every revelation. The air itself seems to thicken with the weight of ancient knowledge, and you find yourself moving with the reverence of one who walks through a sacred space. Old Tom guides you to a section of the archive, where the oldest records rest, their parchment yellowed with age but preserved by arts that speak of more than simple care. Here, among scrolls that predate the Shire itself, you discover the first concrete evidence of the great deception that has shaped 3 millennia of history. The manuscript before you bears the seal of Gil-galad, the last High King of the Noldor, but its contents speak of matters that were never recorded in the official histories. It details a meeting held in the ruins of Ostined Heel, where the survivors of Númenor's destruction gathered with the leaders of the free peoples to make decisions that would echo through the ages. The faithful who escaped the downfall. You read aloud, your voice hushed with awe. Number fewer than the stars visible at dawn, yet they carry within them the seed of hope for all Middle-earth. But they have seen what becomes of kingdoms that reach too high, and they choose now the path of humility over the road of power. The document continues with details that make your heart race. Lists of names, noble houses that chose to abandon their titles and merge with the smaller folk of Middle-earth. The House of Elros, the lineage of kings deliberately scattered among the Falahides who would become the Tooks and Brandybucks. The Guild of Loremasters, keepers of Númenor's greatest knowledge, choosing to live as simple farmers and craftsmen among the Harfoots. Strider points to a section marked with elvish runes that seem to shimmer in the chamber's strange light. Here is the true founding of the Shire, he says, not the simple grant of land that the histories record, but a carefully orchestrated plan to create a sanctuary where the blood of the West could be preserved without the corruption of power. The runes tell a story that transforms everything you thought you knew about the Shire's origins. King Argelibith of Arthedain didn't simply grant empty land to wandering hobbits. He was fulfilling an ancient compact made with the survivors of Númenor, creating a protected realm where the hidden nobility could live in peace while preserving their bloodlines for a future need that only the wise could foresee. But it's the next discovery that truly takes your breath away. Hidden in a niche carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly, you find a small crystal that pulses with inner light. The moment your fingers touch its surface, visions flood your mind, images of the past that feel more real than memory. You see the great harbor of Númenor in its final days, but not as the histories described. Instead of panicked evacuation, you witness a careful, deliberate exodus, ships departing under cover of darkness, carrying not just refugees, but the most precious artifacts of Númenorian civilization. Noble families voluntarily divesting themselves of titles and treasures, choosing exile over the corruption that had claimed their homeland. The vision shifts, and you see these same families arriving on the shores of Middle-earth, but their destination is not the kingdoms of Gondor or Arnor. Instead they travel north and west, into lands that seem wild and empty but pulse with a subtle power that speaks to their Númenorian heritage. They meet with beings who seem part of the landscape itself, ancient spirits who remember the music of creation and who welcome these refugees with words that carry the weight of prophecy. The blood of the blessed shall be preserved, the spirits sing, their voices like wind through distant trees. Hidden among the small folk, protected by their very humility, waiting for the hour when Middle-earth's need is greatest and the mighty have failed to answer the call. The vision fades, leaving you gasping in the chamber's cool air. But the crystal's revelations have only begun. As you hold it closer to the light, new images form in its depths. You see the early days of the Shire, but not as a simple agricultural settlement. Instead, you witness the careful placement of each hobbit hole, the deliberate channeling of streams to follow patterns that mirror the sacred geography of Númenor, and the construction of buildings that seem humble but incorporate architectural principles that speak of profound understanding. The Matham houses, you whisper, suddenly understanding. They weren't just repositories for unwanted gifts. They were treasure vaults, preserving artistic gifts. They were treasure vaults, preserving artifacts from Númenor itself. Old Tom nods, his eyes reflecting depths you're only beginning to fathom. Every family kept something, though most forgot what they were keeping. Rings that weren't quite magical, but carried the memory of starlight. Stones that seemed ordinary but hummed with power when held by certain bloodlines. Books written in languages that looked like common speech but carried meanings that only the blood of the West could truly understand. The crystal shows you more. Images that make your heart race with their implications. You see Gandalf himself, but not as the Grey Pilgrim most know. Instead, he appears as he truly is. A Maiar of Valinor, walking through the early Shire with eyes that see far more than his humble appearance suggests. He pauses at certain hobbit holes, his expression growing thoughtful, and you realize he's not just observing but actively searching for something or someone. The Astari knew. Strider says quietly. From the moment they arrived in Middle-earth, they were aware of the hidden nobility dwelling in the Shire. But they were bound by laws that prevented them from revealing what they knew. They could guide and suggest, but the choice to accept destiny had to come from within. The chamber seems to pulse with renewed energy, and you notice details that had escaped your attention before. The walls themselves are covered with a script so faint it's barely visible. But as your eyes adjust, you realize it's not carved into the stone but growing from it, as if the very earth remembers the words and refuses to let them fade. The script tells a story that makes your blood run cold. It speaks of the Ring of Power, but not as a simple artifact of evil. Instead, it reveals the ring's true nature as a test, a divine instrument designed to reveal the worthiness of those who encounter it. The corruption it brings is not random but purposeful, designed to strip away pretense and reveal the true nature of those who would claim power. Only the blood of the blessed could resist. The script continues, its words seeming to whisper directly into your mind. Only those who carried the grace of the Valar themselves could touch the ring and remain uncorrupted. The mighty would fall, the proud would be humbled. But the humble who carried hidden nobility would prove themselves worthy of the trust placed in them. The implications are staggering. The War of the Ring was not just a conflict between good and evil, but a carefully orchestrated test to determine whether the blood of Númenor had remained pure after 3 millennia of hidden existence. Frodo's journey was not just an act of heroism but a validation of the Valar's greatest gamble. Proof that true nobility could survive even when stripped of all outward signs of power. But even as these revelations unfold, you sense that something is missing. The archive holds vast knowledge, but there are gaps in the record, spaces where crucial information should be but isn't. The genealogies are incomplete, the prophecies are fragmentary, and the artifacts themselves seem to be pieces of a larger puzzle that remains tantalizingly out of reach. As more you say, your voice carrying certainty despite the questions that burn in your mind. This is just the beginning. The real secret, the ultimate truth about why Frodo could carry the ring, is still hidden. Old Tom's expression grows troubled, and he exchanges a glance with Strider that speaks of shared knowledge and difficult decisions. You're right, of course. The Archive of Echoes holds only the fragments that were safe to preserve. The deeper truths, the most dangerous knowledge was hidden elsewhere, protected by guardians who swore oaths that bound them beyond death itself. The crystal in your hands grows warm, and new images begin to form in its depths. You see other hidden caches scattered throughout the Shire, each one containing pieces of the greater puzzle, but more than that, you see the guardians themselves. Hobbits who seem ordinary but carry themselves with a dignity that speaks of ancient oaths and sacred duties. The first phase of your quest is complete, but the real journey is only beginning. The blood of Númenor flows through the Shire, but its true purpose, its ultimate destiny, remains shrouded in mystery. To uncover the complete truth about Frodo's unique resistance to the ring, you must venture deeper into the hidden history of the Shire, following clues that lead to secrets so profound they could reshape everything Middle-earth believes about the nature of nobility itself. The weight of discovery settles around you like a familiar cloak as you emerge from the Archive of Echoes into the golden afternoon light of the Shire. The revelations about Númenorian bloodlines pulse through your mind, and for a moment everything seems to crystallize into perfect clarity. The pattern appears complete, the mystery solved with elegant simplicity. It's their connection to the earth, you announce to your companions, your voice carrying the confidence of someone who has finally grasped a long-sought truth. The Númenorians who came to the Shire didn't just hide among the small folk. They became the small folk. They merged so completely with the natural world that they gained its resistance to corruption. The ring draws its power from domination over others, but those who live in harmony with the earth, who think of themselves as gardeners rather than rulers, naturally resist its influence. The theory feels satisfying, even noble. It explains why the hobbits seem so grounded, so resistant to the grand ambitions that corrupt men and elves alike. Their connection to the soil, their love of growing things, their contentment with simple pleasures, all of these create a natural immunity to the ring's promise of power over others. Old Tom listens to your explanation with the patience of someone who has heard many theories over the years, but his expression carries a subtle complexity that you initially mistake for admiration. He nods slowly, his weathered hands tracing patterns in the earth at his feet, and when he speaks, his voice carries what sounds like approval. Aye, there's truth in what you say. The hobbits do have a connection to the earth that runs deeper than most folk realize. You've seen the way their gardens flourish, how their crops grow stronger than they should, how even their livestock seems more content than beasts in other lands. There's something in the soil of the Shire that responds to their touch, something that goes beyond simple farming knowledge. Strider adds his voice to the apparent confirmation, his weathered features relaxing into what might be relief. The Rangers have long observed how the Shire seems to protect itself. Storms that devastate other lands lose their fury when they cross the bounds. Wolves that hunt in packs elsewhere become solitary and timid here. Even the shadows seem softer, less threatening. If the hobbits' nature comes from their bond with the earth itself, it would explain much. The afternoon sun bathes the rolling hills in warm light, and everything you see supports your theory. Hobbit holes that seem to grow from the landscape rather than being built upon it. Gardens that bloom with impossible abundance. Fields that yield harvests that feed not just the Shire but much of the surrounding lands. Even the hobbits themselves seem to embody the earth's own contentment, their round faces reflecting the satisfaction of those who have found their perfect place in the world. You walk among them now, with growing confidence, observing how they move through their daily routines with a natural grace that speaks of deep harmony with their environment. The way they tend their gardens suggests more than skill. It demonstrates a communion with growing things that borders on the mystical. Their very speech patterns mirror the rhythms of the seasons, and their concerns rarely extend beyond the boundaries of their own fertile lands. It makes perfect sense, you continue, your excitement building as more evidence supports your conclusion. The ring promised dominion over others, but the hobbits never wanted to dominate anyone. They wanted to tend their gardens, brew their ale, and live in peace. What power could the ring offer to someone who already possessed everything they desired? The theory explains so much. Why Bilbo was able to carry the ring for decades without being completely corrupted. Why Frodo could bear it across Middle-earth when even Gandalf feared to touch it. Why Sam could give it back after wearing it, something that should have been impossible for anyone else. Their hobbit nature, their earth connection, their simple contentment, all of these created a natural resistance to the ring's temptations. But even as you elaborate on this satisfying explanation, you begin to notice subtle details that don't quite fit. Old Tom's smile, for instance, carries a quality that you initially mistook for approval, but now realize might be something else entirely. It's the expression of someone watching a student work through a problem, pleased with their progress but knowing they haven't yet reached the final answer. Strider's agreement, too, carries undertones that suggest complexity beyond your current understanding. When he speaks of the Shire's protective qualities, his voice holds notes of something deeper, something that earthly connection alone couldn't explain. The way he glances at certain landmarks, the reverence with which he approaches specific locations, suggests knowledge that goes beyond simple observation of natural phenomena. The afternoon grows longer, and as shadows begin to stretch across the hills, you find yourself in the garden behind the Green Dragon, sharing a meal with several local hobbits who seem eager to discuss their connection to the land. Their stories support your theory beautifully. They speak of soil that seems to guide their hands, of plants that grow in patterns that please the eye without conscious planning, of seasons that flow with a rhythm that feels like music made manifest. Yet underneath their words, you detect something else. A careful quality to their speech, as if they're choosing their words with unusual precision. Not deception exactly, but a kind of gentle misdirection that suggests they're sharing part of the truth while holding back something more significant. It's young Pippin, Took, who provides the first crack in your elegant theory. He arrives at the garden as the sun sets, his face flushed with excitement from some adventure in the old forest. As he settles beside the fire with a mug of ale, he begins to regale the company with tales of his recent wanderings, and his words carry details that make your carefully constructed explanation begin to wobble. "Found the strangest thing today," he says, his voice carrying the enthusiasm of youth. "Down by the old willow where the water runs deep. There's a stone that hums when you touch it. Not like any stone I've ever seen, mind you. Smooth as glass and warm as a summer day, even though it's been raining all week. And the humming, well, it almost sounds like singing, like voices from far away calling out in languages that make your heart ache even though you can't understand a word." He pauses to take a long draught of ale, and when he continues, his voice drops to a whisper that nevertheless carries clearly through the evening air. "But here's the strange part. The stone only hums for some folk. I brought my cousin Ted to see it, and he heard nothing at all. Same with the miller's son and half the lads from Bywater. But when old Bandobras touched it, the humming grew so loud it made the water ripple, and his eyes got all misty like he was remembering something from long ago." The story sends a chill through you that has nothing to do with the cooling air. A stone that responds to some bloodlines but not others, that carries voices from distant lands, that awakens memories in those who bear the right heritage. This isn't about connection to the earth. This is about something far more specific, far more deliberately placed. Old Tom's expression hasn't changed, but you notice now that his eyes hold depths that speak of knowledge carefully guarded. When he catches your gaze, his smile carries a quality that you finally recognize. It's not approval for a correct conclusion, but gentle patience for someone who has grasped part of the truth but not yet reached its heart. "Earth connection," he says quietly, his voice carrying across the garden despite its softness. "Aye, that's part of it. Right enough. But you're a scholar, friend, and scholars know that the most elegant explanations are often the simplest ones. Sometimes the truth that stares us in the face is the hardest one to see. Not because it's hidden, but because it's so much larger than we expected." Strider nods, his hand resting on his sword hilt in a gesture that speaks of old habits and older oaths. The Shire's protection runs deeper than soil and root, though those are part of it. The earth itself remembers older covenants, older promises. The hobbits' resistance to corruption comes not just from their nature, but from their heritage. And that heritage, friend scholar, is both simpler and more complex than your theory suggests. The fire crackles in the growing darkness, and around it, the faces of the hobbits reflect light that seems to come from more than just burning wood. There's something in their expressions, a quality of ancient dignity that sits strangely with their humble appearance. You realize that your theory, elegant as it seemed, has only scratched the surface of a mystery that runs deeper than you imagined. The blood of Númenor flows through the Shire, but its resistance to corruption comes from more than just merger with the earth. There's a purpose here, a design that spans millennia and touches the very foundations of Middle-earth's history. Your first conclusion, satisfying as it felt, has revealed itself as merely the doorway to a greater truth. The real mystery of why Frodo could carry the ring still awaits discovery, and the path to that truth leads not through theories about Earth connection, but through secrets that have been hidden so well that even those who carry them have forgotten their true significance. The night deepens around you, and with it the growing certainty that your real journey into the heart of the Shire's mystery is only just beginning. The dawn breaks over the Shire with a quality of light that seems different now, charged with possibilities you hadn't noticed before. Your theory about Earth connection lies in ruins around your feet, but rather than disappointment, you feel the exhilaration of a scholar who has discovered that the mystery runs far deeper than initially imagined. Old Tom meets you outside the Green Dragon as the mist still clings to the hollows, his eyes bright with something that might be approval for your willingness to abandon comfortable conclusions. "Ready for the real journey to begin?" he asks, shouldering a pack that seems to hold more than its size should allow. The archive of echoes showed you the surface, but the deep currents flow in places where few have ever walked. Today we go where the Shire's true foundations lie hidden, beneath layers of time and careful forgetting. Strider joins you as you leave Hobbiton behind, following paths that seem familiar but lead in directions that appear on no map. The landscape around you shifts subtly as you walk, remaining recognizably the Shire but revealing aspects that casual observation would never uncover. Ancient stones emerge from hedgerows like sleeping sentinels. Wells that seemed ordinary yesterday now pulse with a subtle rhythm that matches your heartbeat. Even the trees lean inward as you pass, as if listening to conversations carried on winds that have blown since the elder days. "The second cache lies in the old forest's heart," Tom explains, as the familiar green hills give way to deeper, older country. "But it's not a place you can reach by simple walking. The paths we take now follow lines of power that were old when Númenor was young, and they respond only to those who carry the right heritage or travel in the company of those who do. The old forest receives you with a silence that feels expectant rather than hostile. The trees here are ancient beyond measure, their trunks thick enough to house entire hobbit families, their branches woven together so tightly that the sky becomes a distant memory, glimpsed through green windows. But more than their age, you sense their awareness. These trees remember, and as you walk among them, you feel the weight of their accumulated knowledge pressing against your consciousness like a vast, patient mind. The path leads to a clearing where sunlight falls in patterns that seem too regular to be natural. At its center stands a structure that defies easy description. It appears to be a hobbit hole, but one built into a tree so massive that its hollow could contain a small village. The round door is carved from wood that gleams like polished silver, and its brass fittings bear symbols that make your eyes water when you try to focus on them directly. "The House of Memory," Tom says, his voice heavy with reverence. "Built by the first who came to these shores when the boundary between Númenor and Middle-earth was thinner than it became. Here, the deepest secrets were preserved, the most dangerous knowledge kept safe from those who might misuse it." The door opens at Tom's touch, revealing an interior that stretches far beyond what the tree's dimensions should allow. The walls curve away into shadows that seem to hold their own light, and the air carries scents that speak of sea spray and starflowers, of libraries that existed beneath the waves and gardens that bloomed in the light of the two trees. You step inside feeling like an intruder in a sacred space, but the house itself seems to welcome you with warmth that seeps into your bones. The central chamber holds wonders that make the archive of echoes seem like a simple storage room. Here, knowledge has been preserved, not in scrolls and books, but in crystalline formations that grow from the floor like frozen songs. Each crystal hums with its own frequency, and when you approach them, images and voices flow directly into your mind without the need for reading or interpretation. The first crystal shows you the true scope of the conspiracy that brought Númenorian survivors to the Shire. You see not just the noble families, but an entire shadow kingdom working in concert to preserve what was most precious about their lost civilization. Ships arriving in hidden harbors along the Grey Havens, their holds filled not with refugees, but with the accumulated wisdom of 40 centuries of human achievement. Masters of every craft and art deliberately scattering themselves among the small folk, teaching their skills while hiding their true identities. But it's the second crystal that reveals the conspiracy's true depth. The preservation of Númenorian blood was not random or desperate. It was guided by prophecy, shaped by the direct intervention of the Valar themselves. You see figures of impossible beauty moving among the survivors, beings whose faces shift between human and divine, speaking words that carry the weight of cosmic authority. The blood of the blessed must be preserved. One of them declares, her voice like music made of starlight, but not as it was, proud and reaching always toward dominion. It must be humbled, refined, made pure through generations of service rather than rule. Only then will it be worthy to bear the burden that is coming. The vision shifts, and you see the establishment of the Shire, not as a simple land grant, but as the fulfillment of ancient design. Every hobbit hole is positioned according to principles that mirror the sacred architecture of Valinor itself. The rivers are channeled to follow paths that echo the music of creation. Even the seemingly random placement of villages follows patterns that would be recognized by the Ainur as fragments of the great song made manifest in earth and stone. A third crystal shows you something that makes your breath catch in your throat. The ring itself, but not as you've ever seen it before. Here it appears as it truly is, not a simple band of gold, but a focal point where the fundamental forces of creation converge. You watch in awe as its making is revealed, not as the work of Sauron alone, but as the corruption of something far more profound. The ring was meant to be a test, a divine instrument that would reveal the worthiness of those who encountered it. Only the blood that carries the blessing of the Valar can resist its call. The crystal whispers directly into your mind. Only those who inherit the grace of the undying lands can touch it and remain themselves. The mighty will fall. The proud will be humbled, but the humble who carry hidden nobility will prove themselves worthy of the trust placed in them. The chamber grows quiet around you as the full implications settle into your consciousness. The War of the Ring was not just a conflict between good and evil, but a carefully orchestrated test spanning 3,000 years. Every choice made by the Númenorian survivors, every generation of hidden nobility living as simple hobbits, every carefully preserved bloodline, all of it building toward the moment when one small hobbit would prove that the blood of the West had remained pure despite centuries of obscurity. Tom's voice breaks the silence, soft but clear. Now you begin to see the true scope of what was preserved in the Shire. Not just bloodlines, but the very capacity for resistance to ultimate corruption. Frodo's journey was not just heroism, it was validation, proof that the Valar's greatest gamble had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. But even as this revelation unfolds, you sense deeper mysteries stirring in the chamber's shadows. A fourth crystal pulses with light that seems almost urgent, and when you approach it, the images that flow forth are darker, more complex. You see the other side of the preservation, the prices that were paid to keep the bloodlines pure. Generations of hobbits living with half-remembered dreams of towers that touched the stars, children born with eyes that saw too much, who had to be taught to look away from visions that would drive them mad. Families that carried the weight of noble heritage like a secret curse, knowing they were different but never understanding why. The cost of preserving the blood of Númenor was measured not just in hidden knowledge but in hidden pain. The crystal shows you more, images that make your heart ache with their tragic beauty. You see the loneliness of the guardians, hobbits who knew the truth but could never share it. The weight carried by families like the Tooks and Bagganseys who felt the stirring of ancient nobility in their blood but could only express it through eccentricity and adventure. The subtle madness that touched some bloodlines, the price of carrying memories that stretched back to the foundation of the world. Strider's hand falls on your shoulder, his touch grounding you as the visions threaten to overwhelm your senses. The preservation was not without cost, he says quietly. Every choice has consequences, and the choice to hide such heritage exacted prices that are still being paid. But the alternative was worse. Without the hidden nobility of the Shire, the ring would have found no worthy bearer, and Middle-earth would have fallen to shadow. The chamber around you seems to pulse with life, and you realize that the House of Memory is more than just a repository. It's a living thing. A place where the boundary between past and present grows thin, where the accumulated memories of 3,000 years of hidden heritage press against the walls of reality like a tide waiting to break. A fifth crystal calls to you, its light softer but somehow more profound than all the others. As you approach it, the images that flow forth are peaceful, almost dreamlike. You see the Shire as it could be, a place where the hidden heritage is finally revealed, where hobbits walk knowing they carry the blood of kings but choosing still to tend their gardens and bake their bread. You see a future where nobility is expressed not through dominion but through service, where the greatest achievements are measured not in conquest but in the quiet preservation of all that is good and beautiful in the world. The vision fades, leaving you standing in the chamber's gentle light, surrounded by crystals that hum with the accumulated wisdom of ages. The second phase of your journey is complete, but you sense that the deepest mysteries still await discovery. The blood of Númenor flows through the Shire, preserved and purified through generations of humble service. But the ultimate secret of why Frodo could resist the ring's corruption lies deeper still, in truths so profound they touch the very foundations of creation itself. The House of Memory releases you into an evening that seems touched by starlight from other ages, and as you emerge from the great tree's embrace, the world around you pulses with new significance. Every shadow holds echoes of ancient choices, every breeze carries whispers of long-lost voices, and the very air seems thick with the weight of accumulated history. You are no longer simply walking through the Shire, you are moving through a landscape where past and present converge in ways that make time itself seem malleable. Tom leads you along paths that seem to shift beneath your feet, following routes that exist as much in memory as in physical reality. The old forest around you responds to your passage with an awareness that feels almost human, branches parting to create passages that close again behind you, roots rising from the earth to form steps that dissolve once you've passed. You are traveling now through country that exists in multiple ages simultaneously, where the footsteps of the Númenorian survivors still echo alongside the newer paths worn by generations of hobbits. The echoes grow stronger as we approach the heart, Tom explains, his voice carrying qualities that seem to come from multiple throats, speaking in harmony. Here, where the foundations were laid deepest, the past refuses to stay buried. You'll see things tonight that happened 3,000 years ago, but they're as real as the ground beneath your feet. Time flows differently when you walk where legends were born. The first echo manifests as you crest a hill that overlooks a valley you've never seen before, though logic insists it should be part of the familiar Shire landscape. Below you stretches a scene from the elder days, translucent but undeniably real. Ships with white sails rest in a harbor that couldn't possibly exist so far inland, their hulls bearing the proud emblems of Númenor in its final glory. Figures move among them with purposeful urgency, loading not treasures but people, families whose noble bearing marks them as the last of the faithful. You watch in wonder as the scene unfolds, seeing history that was never recorded in any chronicle. These are not refugees fleeing in panic, but exiles making the hardest choice imaginable. They strip themselves of crowns and ceremonial garments, casting aside the outward symbols of their rank, as they prepare to disappear into obscurity. Children who should inherit kingdoms are taught instead to tend gardens. Masters of statecraft learn the humble arts of brewing and baking. An entire civilization chooses anonymity over empire. The echo shifts, and you see the same valley in a later age, when the ships have long since sailed and the harbor has become a peaceful meadow. But the Númenorians remain, changed now, their proud bearing softened but not erased. They move among the small folk with easy familiarity, teaching skills that seem simple but carry the accumulated wisdom of 40 centuries. A noblewoman shows hobbit children how to cultivate flowers that bloom with impossible beauty. A former sea captain teaches village boys to read the stars. Knowledge flows like water, finding its level, preserving itself by adapting to new forms. Strider's voice breaks through the vision, though he seems to see the echoes as clearly as you do. This is how it was done. Not through conquest or domination, but through love. The survivors didn't impose their culture on the small folk. They wove it into the fabric of hobbit life so carefully that even they forgot where tradition ended and Númenorian influence began. The path leads deeper into the valley, and with each step, the echoes grow stronger, more detailed. You see the establishment of the first hobbit halls, but now you understand the true significance of their construction. The round doors don't just reflect hobbit preferences, they mirror the circular architecture of Númenor's greatest temples. The placement of windows follows principles that ensure each home becomes a small observatory, positioned to catch the light of specific stars. Even the gardens are laid out according to patterns that echo the paradise of Valinor itself. A new echo manifests around you, so vivid that you feel you could step into it and become part of the ancient scene. You stand in what appears to be a great council chamber, its walls carved from living rock and hung with tapestries that shimmer with their own light. At the chamber's heart, figures of impossible dignity debate in voices that carry the weight of cosmic authority. You recognize some of them from ancient lore. Elrond half-elven, young then but already bearing the wisdom of ages in his grey eyes. Gil-galad the High King, his presence so commanding that the very air seems to bend around him. But it's the third figure that takes your breath away. A being whose face shifts between forms, sometimes appearing as an old man with a grey beard, sometimes as a youth with eyes like stars, sometimes as a pillar of light that makes the chamber's walls seem transparent. The blood must be preserved, the shifting figure declares, and you realize you're witnessing one of the Valar themselves walking in Middle-earth. But not as it was, proud and reaching ever toward dominion. The survivors carry within them the seed of the same corruption that destroyed their kingdom. It must be purged, refined, made humble through generations of service before it can be trusted with the ultimate test. Elrond's voice carries pain that spans ages. You ask them to forget themselves, to let their children grow up ignorant of their own nobility. Is this justice for those who remained faithful when their kingdom fell to shadow? The Valar's response echoes with compassion that seems to embrace all of creation. Justice is not our goal, salvation is. The ring of power stirs in the darkness, and when it wakes, Middle-earth will need defenders whose hearts cannot be corrupted by its promises. The mighty will fall before its allure. The proud will be brought low by their own ambitions. Only the humble who carry hidden nobility, only those who have learned to find joy in service rather than dominion, will prove strong enough to bear the burden that is coming. The echo shifts again, and you see the aftermath of that cosmic decision. The survivors of Númenor are scattering across Middle-earth, but not randomly. Each family is guided to specific locations, places where their bloodlines will serve purposes that stretch across millennia. Some go to Gondor and Arnor, where their heritage will be remembered and honored, but others, the most precious carriers of the ancient blessing, are led to a small green land, where they will disappear so completely that even they will forget what they once were. You watch as the first Falahides, Harfoots, and Stores arrive in what will become the Shire. But they are not yet the simple folk of later ages. Their leader bears himself like the king he was born to be, though he has cast aside his crown for a gardener's tools. His children possess wisdom that spans centuries, though they are learning to express it through humble crafts. These are not refugees but seeds, planted in fertile ground and left to grow in ways that will serve purposes their planters can barely imagine. The visions continue to unfold around you, each one revealing new layers of the vast conspiracy that shaped the Shire's destiny. You see generation after generation of careful cultivation, not of crops but of character. Bloodlines are guided together through what seems like chance but reveals itself as design. Marriages that appear to be simple love matches actually preserve specific genetic heritage. Children who seem destined for ordinary lives carry within them the accumulated nobility of 40 centuries. But it's the final echo that truly takes your breath away. You see the Shire as it exists now, but overlaid with images from its founding. Every hobbit hole is revealed as a small temple, every garden as a shrine to beauty and growing things. The simple routines of daily life are shown in their true light, as rituals that preserve the best of what Númenor once was. Hobbits going about their business carry themselves with unconscious dignity that echoes their forgotten heritage, their very presence sanctifying the land they inhabit. The echo shows you more, revealing how the preservation of the bloodline served purposes beyond simple genetics. Each generation of hidden nobility added something to the land itself, their presence gradually transforming the Shire into something more than a simple agricultural region. The earth grows more fertile under their touch, the seasons flow with greater harmony, and even the weather seems gentler, as if nature itself recognizes the worthiness of those who tend it. You'll see how the influence spread beyond the Shire's borders, carried by hobbits who traveled to other lands as merchants and wanderers. Wherever they went, they left traces of their hidden heritage, small improvements that accumulated over time into significant changes, fields that produced better crops, communities that governed themselves with greater wisdom, children who grew up with stronger moral foundations. The blood of Númenor was not just preserved in the Shire. It was shared with the wider world through 1,000 small kindnesses and quiet examples. The visions begin to fade as the night deepens around you, but their impact lingers in your consciousness like the afterimage of lightning. You understand now that the Shire is more than a sanctuary for hidden bloodlines. It is a living testament to the possibility of redemption, proof that even the proudest heritage can be transformed into something greater through the alchemy of humility and service. Tom's voice brings you back to the present, though the echoes continue to shimmer at the edges of your vision. Now you begin to see the true scope of what was preserved here. Not just the capacity to resist corruption, but the wisdom to choose service over dominion, love over power, life over mere existence. The hobbits who carry Númenorian blood don't just remember their heritage, they have transformed it into something their ancestors could never have imagined. As you stand in the valley where ships once brought exiles to their new home, you feel the weight of 3,000 years of hidden history pressing against your consciousness. The blood of the West flows through the Shire, but it flows transformed, purified by generations of humble service into something worthy of the ultimate test that was always coming. The mystery of Frodo's resistance to the ring grows deeper with each revelation, and you sense that the most profound secrets still await discovery in the depths of the night that stretches before you. The night air grows thick with expectancy, as Tom leads you away from the Valley of Echoes, following a path that seems to materialize beneath your feet with each step. The visions you've witnessed have shaken the foundations of everything you thought you knew about the Shire, but you sense that they were merely preparation for what is to come. Strider walks beside you in silence, his weathered hand resting on his sword hilt, and you notice that his eyes scan the darkness, not for threats but for signs, as if the very landscape might reveal secrets to those who know how to read its hidden language. The third cache lies beneath the Shire's heart, Tom says, his voice carrying harmonics that seem to resonate from the earth itself. But reaching it requires more than walking. It demands that you understand the true nature of what you seek. Tell me, scholar, what do you now believe about the blood that flows through these hills? The question stops you in your tracks, forcing you to confront the swirling mass of revelations that have accumulated over the past days. I believe, you say slowly, that the hobbits carry the literal bloodline of Númenor's nobility, preserved through 3,000 years of careful breeding and divine intervention. Their resistance to the ring comes from inherited grace, a blessing that flows through their veins like liquid starlight. Tom nods, but his expression carries depths that suggest your answer, while not wrong, remains incomplete. Truth, but not the whole truth. The blood is important, yes, but blood alone could not accomplish what Frodo achieved. Come. The final revelation awaits, and with it the secret that transforms everything you think you know about the nature of nobility itself. The path leads to a hill that stands at the precise center of the Shire, though no map has ever marked it as such. Its slopes are gentle, covered with grass that seems to glow with its own soft radiance. and at its summit stands a single tree whose branches reach towards stars that appear closer here than anywhere else in Middle-earth. The tree's trunk is massive, its bark silver in the starlight, and you realize with growing awe that you're approaching something far older than the Shire, older perhaps than Middle-earth itself. "The heart tree," Strider whispers, his voice filled with reverence that borders on worship. "Planted here by the Valar themselves when the world was young, its roots reach down to the very foundations of creation. This is why the Shire was chosen, why the survivors were guided to this exact location. They didn't just need hidden sanctuary, they needed sacred ground. As you climb the hill, each step brings new revelations that crash over you like waves. The tree before you is not just ancient, it's alive. In ways that transcend ordinary life, its branches move without wind, its leaves whisper words in languages that predate speech, and its very presence seems to bend reality around it like a stone dropped into still water. You realize that you're not just approaching a tree but a nexus, a point where the physical and spiritual realms converge. Tom places his hand on the tree's bark, and the response is immediate. The silver surface ripples like water, revealing an opening that has never existed before this moment. Inside, light flows upward from depths that seem to extend beyond the merely physical, and you understand that you're about to enter not just a hidden chamber, but a sacred space where the deepest mysteries of creation are preserved. The descent takes you through layers of reality that shift and blend around you. The walls are carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly, but their meaning flows into your consciousness without need for translation. They tell the story of creation itself, of the music of the Ainur and the discord that Melkor introduced into the great song. But more than that, they reveal how that discord became part of a greater harmony, how corruption and redemption dance together in patterns too vast for mortal minds to fully comprehend. The chamber you enter defies description. It exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its walls curving away into spaces that your eyes cannot follow. At its center stands a pool of water that reflects not the ceiling above, but scenes from across time and space. And floating above the pool, suspended in crystalline formations that seem to be made of frozen music, are artifacts that make your heart race with recognition. The Silmarils hang there, but not as Tolkien described them in his histories. These are not just jewels that hold the light of the two trees, but repositories of divine essence itself, focal points where the original creative force of the universe has been captured and preserved. Their light doesn't just illuminate the chamber, it transforms it, revealing layers of meaning that exist beyond the merely physical. But it's the figure seated beside the pool that truly takes your breath away. At first glance, he appears to be just another hobbit, elderly and kindly, with the soft features and twinkling eyes that mark him as one of the Shire's simple folk. But as your vision adjusts to the chamber's impossible light, you see the truth that has been hidden beneath that humble exterior. This is no ordinary hobbit. Power radiates from him in waves that make the air itself shimmer, and when he speaks, his voice carries harmonics that seem to resonate from the foundations of the world itself. Yet his words are spoken in the gentle accent of the Shire, and his smile holds all the warmth of a grandfather welcoming beloved grandchildren home. "Welcome, seeker of truth," he says, and you realize that you're in the presence of one of the Valar themselves, disguised but not hidden, wearing the form of a simple hobbit, while retaining all the cosmic authority of his true nature. "I am the guardian of this place, the keeper of the deepest secrets. You have traveled far to learn why young Frodo could bear the ring, but the answer is both simpler and more complex than you imagine." He gestures to the pool and its surface stirs with images that make your consciousness reel. You see the creation of the rings of power, but not as a simple tale of craft and corruption. Instead, you witness a cosmic drama, where each ring serves as a test, a divine instrument designed to reveal the true nature of those who encounter it. The 9 corrupt their bearers because those bearers seek dominion over others. The 7 drive their holders to madness because they awaken greed that exists within dwarven hearts. But the one ring, the master of them all, demands something different from those who would wield it. The One Ring, the Guardian explains, his voice carrying the weight of cosmic truth, was never meant to be simply an instrument of evil. It is a mirror reflecting back the deepest desires of those who touch it. For those whose hearts are corrupt, it shows them power over others and grants them the means to achieve it. But for those whose hearts are pure, those who desire nothing more than to serve and protect, it becomes something else entirely. The pool shows you Frodo's journey, but revealed now in its true light. Each step of his quest is illuminated by purpose that spans the ages, each choice he makes validated by heritage that reaches back to the music of creation itself. But more than heritage, you see the transformation that has taken place within the Baggins bloodline over 3,000 years of humble service. The blood of Númenor was preserved, the Guardian continues, but it was also purified. Each generation that chose service over dominion, love over power, added something to that bloodline that its original bearers never possessed. By the time young Frodo was born, the Baggins line carried not just the nobility of ancient kings, but the accumulated wisdom of every choice made in favor of others rather than self. The revelation hits you like lightning splitting the night sky. Frodo's resistance to the ring didn't come just from inherited grace or divine blessing. It came from 3,000 years and years of ancestors who had faced similar choices on smaller scales and consistently chosen sacrifice over selfishness. Every hobbit who had helped a neighbor instead of advancing himself. Every generation that had preserved knowledge for others rather than hoarding it. Every small act of kindness performed without thought of reward. All of it had accumulated in the bloodline like layers of pearl around a grain of sand. This is the true secret, the Guardian says, his eyes reflecting depths that contain entire universes. Nobility is not inherited, it is earned. The blood of the West provided the foundation, but it was the choices made by countless humble hobbits that built upon that foundation, something greater than their ancestors ever achieved. Frodo could resist the ring because he carried within him not just the grace of the Valar, but the accumulated virtue of 3,000 years of right choices. The pool stirs again, and you see the moment when Frodo first touched the ring. But now you understand what you're witnessing. The ring reaches into his heart, seeking the desire for power that corrupts all others, but finds instead something it was never designed to overcome. Not just purity, but purity refined through generations of testing. Not just nobility, but nobility tempered by humility. Not just grace, but grace earned through the daily choice to serve rather than rule. The ring could not corrupt him, the Guardian explains, because there was nothing in him for it to corrupt. The Baggins bloodline had been refined to the point where selfishness itself had been bred out of it, replaced by an instinctive impulse towards sacrifice and service. When the ring offered him dominion over others, it was like offering water to someone who had never felt thirst. The implications cascade through your consciousness like an avalanche. The entire War of the Ring was not just a conflict between good and evil, but the culmination of the longest experiment in moral evolution ever attempted. The Valar had not just preserved the blood of Númenor, they had guided its transformation across millennia, using the gentle rhythms of hobbit life to accomplish something that no amount of divine intervention could have achieved directly. But even as this revelation settles into your understanding, you sense that deeper mysteries remain. The Guardian's expression carries complexities that suggest the story has layers yet to be revealed, and the chamber around you pulses with energies that speak of secrets so profound they touch the very nature of creation itself. The blood flows through the Shire, transformed and purified. But its ultimate purpose reaches beyond mere resistance to corruption. In the depths of the night that surrounds you, the final secrets await discovery, truths that will reveal not just why Frodo could carry the ring, but why his success was necessary for the salvation of more than just Middle-earth itself. The chamber throbs with anticipation as the Guardian rises from his seat beside the pool, his movements carrying a grace that speaks of power held carefully in check. The light from the suspended Silmarils shifts and intensifies, and you realize that what you thought was the ultimate revelation was merely the foundation for truths so profound they threaten to overwhelm your mortal consciousness. The very air seems to thicken with the weight of cosmic secrets about to be unveiled. You understand now why Frodo could resist the ring, the Guardian says, his voice carrying harmonics that seem to resonate from multiple dimensions simultaneously. But you do not yet comprehend the true scope of what his resistance accomplished. The purification of the Baggins bloodline was not an end in itself, but a means to an end so vast that even the Valar could barely conceive its implications. He gestures to the pool, and its surface becomes a window into realms that exist beyond the physical boundaries of Middle-earth. You see the undying lands, but not as the peaceful sanctuary described in legends. Instead, you witness a realm in crisis, where the very foundations of creation strain under pressures that threaten to tear apart the fabric of reality itself. The corruption of the One Ring, the Guardian explains, his words heavy with sorrow that spans ages, was never contained to Middle-earth alone. Its influence spread like a poison through the spiritual realms, reaching even into Valinor itself. The discord it represented threatened to unravel the music of creation, to introduce chaos into the very foundations upon which all existence rests. The pool shows you visions that make your consciousness reel with their implications. You see the Valar themselves struggling against forces that seem to emanate from the ring's malevolent influence, their perfect harmony disrupted by discordant notes that spread like cracks through crystal. The two trees begin to dim, their light flickering as the corruption reaches into the heart of the Blessed Realm. Even Ilúvatar seems to withdraw deeper into mystery, as if the very presence of ultimate evil in his creation causes him to question the wisdom of the great song itself. This is why the blood of Númenor had to be preserved and purified. The Guardian continues, his form seeming to grow more luminous as he speaks, not just to provide a ring-bearer who could resist corruption, but to create a vessel pure enough to actually transform the ring's nature. Frodo's journey was not just about destroying the ring, but about redeeming it, turning its accumulated malevolence back into the creative force it was originally meant to be. The revelation strikes you like lightning, illuminating connections you had never imagined. The ring was not simply destroyed in Mount Doom. It was transformed, its essence purified by passage through a soul so refined that even ultimate corruption could not touch it. Frodo's resistance didn't just prevent the ring from claiming another victim. It actually healed the wound that the ring's existence had torn in the fabric of creation itself. Watch, the Guardian commands, and the pool shows you the moment of the ring's destruction, but revealed now in its true cosmic significance. As the golden band melts in the fires of Mount Doom, waves of purified energy radiate outward, not just through Middle-earth but through all the realms of existence. The darkness that had infected Valinor begins to lift. The two trees blaze with renewed brilliance, and the Valar themselves seem to exhale in relief as harmony returns to the music of creation. But the visions go deeper still, revealing connections that span not just space but time itself. You see the founding of Númenor, but now understand it as the first step in a plan that reached across 4,000 years of carefully orchestrated development. The Valar didn't just reward the faithful of the First Age with a blessed kingdom. They created a breeding ground for the kind of nobility that could ultimately heal the wounds that evil had inflicted upon creation. The Númenorians were not just blessed, the Guardian explains. They were crafted. Each generation was guided toward greater nobility, higher wisdom, deeper connection to the divine. But pride corrupted them, as it corrupts all who reach too high, too quickly. Their fall was not just punishment, it was necessary. Only through humility could their blood be refined to the point where it could accomplish what was always intended. The pool reveals the hidden history of the Shire's founding. But now you see it as part of a cosmic design that encompasses the entire span of Middle-earth's history. The survivors who came to these green hills were not just seeking refuge, they were fulfilling prophecy. Every choice they made, every generation that chose simplicity over complexity, every small act of kindness that accumulated in their bloodlines, all of it was guided by providence toward the moment when one small hobbit would carry the salvation of all creation in his hands. The third open loop. You breathe, finally understanding the full scope of what you've discovered. This isn't just about Middle-earth or even about the Valar. This is about healing a wound in creation itself, about proving that good can not only resist evil but actually transform it into something greater. The Guardian nods, his expression carrying both profound sadness and infinite hope. The music of creation was marred by discord from its very beginning, when Melkor introduced themes of domination and corruption into Eriu's perfect harmony. Every act of evil since then has added to that discord, threatening to eventually overwhelm the original melody entirely. But Frodo's success proved that even the greatest evil can be redeemed when it encounters purity refined through millennia of right choices. The chamber around you seems to pulse with new energy, and you realize that the Silmarils are responding to the truth being revealed. Their light grows brighter, more complex, and you understand that they are not just witnessing this moment but actively participating in it. The crystalline formations that suspend them begin to sing, their voices joining in harmonies that echo the original music of creation, but transformed, made greater by the incorporation of themes that speak of redemption and renewal. This is why the bloodlines had to be hidden. The Guardian continues, his voice now carrying overtones that seem to come from the singing crystals themselves. If the true purpose had been known, if the cosmic stakes had been understood, the burden would have been too great for mortal minds to bear. Frodo carried the ring believing he was saving Middle-earth, never knowing that he was actually healing the wounds of creation itself. The pool shows you the aftermath of the ring's destruction. But now you see consequences that extend far beyond what any chronicle has recorded. Across all the realms of existence, the harmony that was lost at creation's beginning begins to reassert itself. The boundaries between the physical and spiritual worlds become more permeable, allowing greater interaction between mortal and divine. Even the straight road that leads to Valinor becomes easier to travel, as if the healing of creation's wound has brought all realms closer together. But it's the final vision that truly takes your breath away. You see Frodo himself, not as the broken hobbit who sailed west seeking healing, but as he truly became through his journey. The ring's passage through his purified soul didn't just transform it, it transformed him, elevating him to a state that transcends mortality without abandoning his essential hobbit nature. He moves now through realms that exist beyond physical space, carrying healing wherever he goes, his very presence a living proof that even the deepest corruption can be overcome. This is the ultimate secret, the Guardian says, his form beginning to fade as if the revelation itself is drawing him back to whatever realm he truly inhabits. Dibaggon's bloodline was not just preserved to resist the ring, it was refined to redeem it. Frodo's success didn't just save Middle-earth, it healed a wound that had festered since the beginning of time, proving that the Valar's greatest gamble was not just successful but necessary for the continued existence of all creation. The chamber grows quiet around you, the singing crystals fading to gentle whispers, the pool's surface reflecting only the soft light of stars that seem closer now than they have ever been. You stand in the presence of truth so profound that it transforms not just your understanding of the War of the Ring, but your comprehension of the very nature of good and evil, creation and redemption, mortality and divinity. The blood of Númenor flows through the Shire, but it flows transformed, carrying within it the accumulated wisdom of 3,000 years of humble service and the divine grace necessary to heal wounds that reach to the very foundations of existence. Frodo's journey was not just heroism, it was cosmic surgery, performed by a hobbit who never knew he was operating on the heart of creation itself. The final mysteries await revelation, but you sense that what remains to be discovered will not just complete your understanding but transform it entirely. revealing truths that will change not just how you see the Shire, but how you comprehend the very nature of reality itself. The Guardian's form stabilizes as dawn approaches, his hobbit appearance taking on qualities that seem to incorporate starlight and morning mist in equal measure. Around you the chamber begins to shift and expand, its walls becoming translucent to reveal the presence of other figures who have been waiting in the spaces between dimensions for this moment of revelation. You realize that you are about to witness a gathering that spans not just geography but time itself, as the keepers of the deepest secrets converge to share knowledge that has been carefully guarded for millennia. The first to materialize fully is Gandalf, but not as you have ever seen him described in any chronicle. Here, in this sacred space beneath the heart tree, he appears as he truly is, Olorine the Maya, his grey robes replaced by raiment that seems woven from starlight itself. His eyes hold depths that contain the memory of creation's beginning, and when he speaks, his voice carries harmonics that resonate with the music of the Ander. The time of secrets is ending, he says, his words addressed not just to you but to the assembled consciousness that fills the chamber. The healing has begun, and the truth that was hidden beneath layers of necessity can now be revealed in its fullness. The scholar has traveled far to understand why Frodo could carry the ring, but the answer reaches deeper than bloodlines and breeding, deeper even than divine intervention. Elrond materializes beside him, but his half-elven nature is revealed now in its true complexity. You see how he carries within himself not just the heritage of two kindreds, but the accumulated wisdom of every choice made between hope and despair across the long ages of Middle-earth's history. His presence brings with it the weight of every council held in Rivendell, every decision made in favor of preservation over destruction. We knew from the beginning, Elrond says, his voice carrying the pain of ages spent watching and waiting. The blood of my brother Elrond's flowed through the hobbits of the Shire. But more than blood, they carried the capacity for the kind of love that transforms rather than conquers. We watched generation after generation, seeing how each choice to serve rather than rule added something to their heritage that no amount of noble birth could provide. Dame Bombadil steps forward from shadows that seem to contain entire forests, and his presence fills the chamber with the scent of growing things and the sound of wind through leaves that remember the elder days. But here, in this place of ultimate revelation, his true nature becomes apparent. He is older than old, a being who existed before the music began and who will remain when the last echo fades, the living embodiment of the world's capacity for joy and renewal. I watched the little ones from the beginning, he says, his voice carrying all the warmth of summer afternoons and the deep contentment of forests at peace. They came to my country, carrying sorrows too heavy for their small shoulders, but they learned to find joy in simple things. Each generation grew lighter, not because their burdens decreased, but because they learned to share them. This is what made them strong enough to bear the greatest burden of all. The chamber expands further, and you realize that representatives of every free people of Middle-earth are gathering in this space that exists beyond normal dimensions. Galadriel appears with light that seems to come from the two trees themselves, her presence bringing memories of Valinor's beauty and the pain of exile endured for the sake of Middle-earth's redemption. Thranduil stands beside her, carrying the deep strength of the woodland realms, while Dane Ironfoot represents the steadfast courage of the dwarves who chose Alliance over ancient grudges. But it's the presence of the eagles that truly transforms your understanding of what you're witnessing. Quahir the Windlord descends from heights that exist beyond physical sky, his great wings stirring air that carries messages from realms you cannot name. When he speaks, his voice carries the perspective of one who has seen Middle-earth from heights where the curvature of the world becomes visible. We have watched from the beginning, he declares, his words echoing with the authority of heaven itself. The Valar charged us to observe and report, to ensure that the great experiment was proceeding according to design. We saw how the hobbit blood was refined, how each generation grew stronger not in might but in moral clarity. When the time came for the ring to be carried, we knew why our vigil had been necessary. The assembled wisdom of ages focuses on you now, and you feel the weight of their accumulated knowledge pressing against your consciousness like a tide of starlight. These beings have watched the slow transformation of the Shire across 3 millennia, understanding purposes that the hobbits themselves never suspected. Their presence here in this moment of ultimate revelation transforms your quest from simple scholarly inquiry into participation in cosmic truth. Gandalf steps forward, his form seeming to grow more luminous as he speaks. The question you came seeking to answer, why Frodo could carry the ring, has revealed itself to be part of a greater mystery. The Baggins bloodline was not just preserved, it was cultivated. Every choice made by his ancestors, every small act of kindness, every moment when they chose others over themselves, added something to his spiritual inheritance that made him capable of accomplishing what no other being in creation could achieve. Elrond nods, his ancient eyes reflecting memories that span the entire history of the Rings of Power. We knew that the One Ring could not simply be destroyed by force. It had to be redeemed, transformed from an instrument of domination into something that could heal rather than harm. This required a bearer whose soul was so pure that even ultimate corruption would be transformed by contact with it. The chamber pulses with energy as Galadriel adds her voice to the revelation. I tested many with my mirror, seeking those who could resist the lure of power. But Frodo was different. When the ring's influence touched him, instead of corrupting him, he purified it. This was not resistance, it was transformation. The ring itself began to change in his possession, its malevolence slowly being transmuted into something entirely different. Tom Bombadil's laughter fills the chamber with warmth that seems to come from the earth itself. The little fellow didn't know what he was doing, of course. That was part of what made it work. He carried the ring not as a burden to be endured, but as a responsibility to be fulfilled. His love for the Shire, his desire to protect all growing things, these transformed the ring's power from domination into preservation. The eagle's perspective adds another dimension to the unfolding truth. From our height, we could see the changes spreading outward from the Shire as Frodo began his journey. The ring's influence, always a source of corruption, began to carry traces of his purity instead. By the time he reached Mount Doom, the ring itself had been so transformed that its destruction released not just the energy of evil defeated, but the power of evil redeemed. Daenin Ironfoot speaks with the blunt honesty of his people. We dwarves understand craft and the transformation of base materials into precious ones. What happened to the ring in Frodo's care was the greatest work of alchemy ever achieved. The transmutation of absolute corruption into absolute purity, accomplished not through skill but through love, so complete it could not be tainted. The gathered wisdom creates a symphony of understanding that threatens to overwhelm your mortal consciousness. Each voice adds another layer to the revelation, building a picture of cosmic significance that transforms the simple tale of a hobbit's journey into an epic of creation's healing. The War of the Ring becomes revealed as a climax of the longest and most important story ever told, the proof that good can not only resist evil but actually transform it into something greater. But even as this understanding settles into your consciousness, you sense that the final revelations are yet to come. The assembled beings exchange glances that speak of knowledge so profound that even this gathering of the wise approaches it with reverence. The chamber around you seems to hold its breath, and you realize that what you have learned so far, profound as it has been, is preparation for truths that will challenge the very foundations of everything you thought you knew about the nature of reality itself. The blood of Númenor flows through the Shire, refined by 3,000 years of humble service into something that could accomplish the impossible. But the true scope of what that accomplishment means for the future of all creation is yet to be revealed, and the gathering of wisdom around you prepares to unveil secrets that will transform not just your understanding but your very existence in ways you cannot yet imagine. The assembled wisdom falls into contemplative silence as the weight of revealed knowledge settles over the chamber like a shroud woven from starlight and sorrow. You stand in the presence of beings who have watched the unfolding of the greatest story ever told. but their expressions carry shadows that speak of costs and consequences yet to be fully understood. The revelation of Frodo's cosmic significance has illuminated truths that span creation itself, but with that illumination comes the recognition of burdens that even immortal minds struggle to comprehend. Gandalf's luminous form dims slightly, taking on qualities that speak of profound weariness carried across ages. "The healing has begun," he says, his voice heavy with implications that seem to press against the chamber's walls. But healing wounds that reach to the foundations of creation carries consequences that even the Valar did not fully foresee. The transformation of the ring, the redemption of absolute corruption, has set forces in motion that will reshape not just Middle-earth but all the realms of existence. The chamber around you begins to shift, its crystalline walls becoming windows into visions that make your consciousness reel with their scope. You see the healing spreading outward from Mount Doom's fires, waves of purified energy washing across Middle-earth and beyond, reaching into realms that exist in dimensions your mind cannot properly map. But with the healing comes change, fundamental alterations to the nature of reality that even its architects are still struggling to understand. Elrond steps forward, his half-elven features marked by an expression of profound uncertainty. "We knew that success would mean transformation, but we did not anticipate the magnitude of what would be unleashed. The boundaries between the physical and spiritual realms are dissolving. The straight road to Valinor becomes easier to travel with each passing day, and beings who were once content to remain in their appointed spheres now find themselves drawn to explore realms that were previously forbidden to them." The vision shifts to show you the undying lands, but not as the unchanging paradise of legend. Instead, you witness a realm in transition, where the perfect harmony of ages is being replaced by something new, something that incorporates themes of redemption and renewal that never existed before. The two trees themselves pulse with light that carries new colors, hues that speak of possibilities that were unimaginable before corruption itself was proven capable of transformation. Even Eru Ilúvatar stirs from his long contemplation, Tom Bombadil says, his usually cheerful voice carrying undertones of awe that border on fear. The healing of creation's deepest wound has awakened the one who dwells beyond all music, and his attention turns once again to the great song that he composed at the beginning of time. But his gaze carries questions that even he had not considered before. If evil can be redeemed, if corruption can be transformed into purity, what then is the nature of the discord that he allowed Melkor to introduce? Was it truly dissonance, or was it a necessary component of a harmony too complex for any mind to fully comprehend? The implications cascade through your consciousness like a flood of liquid starlight. The healing that Frodo accomplished has not just repaired ancient damage, it has revealed the possibility that even the fundamental conflicts that have driven creation's story might be subject to transformation. The eternal struggle between good and evil, light and darkness, order and chaos, all of it might be part of a greater pattern that tends not toward the victory of one side, but toward the reconciliation of all apparent opposites. Galadriel's voice carries the weight of prophecy as she speaks. The change spreads through all the realms, touching even those beings who thought themselves beyond the reach of transformation. Melkor himself, bound in the void beyond all circles of the world, stirs in his prison as the waves of redemption reach even into that ultimate darkness. His rage, which has burned unchanged since the beginning of time, begins to show traces of something that might, in ages yet to come, become regret. The vision expands to show you the void itself, that realm of ultimate exile, where the first and greatest of the Valar suffers the consequences of his choice to rebel against the music of creation. But even here, in this place beyond all hope, the influence of Frodo's achievement penetrates like light seeping through cracks in absolute darkness. The chains that bind Melkor begin to resonate with harmonies that speak not of punishment but of possibility. And for the first time since creation's beginning, the thought of redemption touches even the most fallen of all beings. Thranduil speaks with a deep wisdom of the woodland realms, his voice carrying the perspective of one who has watched the slow cycles of growth and decay across millennia. The forests whisper of changes that reach to their very roots. Trees that were old when Middle-earth was young begin to sing with voices they have never possessed before. The division between growing things and thinking beings grows thin, and we find ourselves understanding languages that we never knew existed. The chamber fills with presences that seem to exist at the very edge of perception, beings who dwell in the spaces between thoughts and the moments between heartbeats. You realize that the transformation has awakened forms of life that were dormant since creation's beginning. Consciousness that existed in potential but never found expression until the healing created new possibilities for existence itself. But it's Dine Ironfoot who voices the fear that lurks beneath all these wonders. Change, even good change, carries its own dangers. The dwarves know the weight of deep things, the pressure that builds in the bones of the earth when forces beyond understanding begin to move. What if the healing spreads too far, too fast? What if the transformation of creation's foundations brings about changes that even the redeemed cannot control? The question hangs in the chamber's crystalline air like a note that refuses to resolve into harmony. Around you, the assembled wisdom of ages contemplates implications that stretch beyond their vast experience. The success they helped orchestrate has opened doorways that cannot be closed, set in motion changes that will continue to unfold for ages yet to come. Gandalf's form grows more substantial as he addresses the growing uncertainty. This is why the knowledge was hidden, why the true scope of what we attempted was known only to the few. The burden of understanding what Frodo's success would unleash would have been too great for mortal minds to bear. Even we who helped guide the design across millennia find ourselves struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what has been set in motion. The chamber around you begins to pulse with rhythms that seem to echo from beyond the boundaries of time itself, and you realize that you are witnessing not just the gathering of wisdom, but the birth of new understanding. The beings assembled here are not just sharing knowledge, they are creating it, forging new comprehension from the raw material of transformed reality. Elrond's voice carries the weight of ages as he continues. The question that brought you to seek the truth about Frodo's ability to carry the ring has revealed itself to be part of a far greater mystery. Why was corruption allowed to exist in the first place? What purpose does discord serve in the greater music? And if evil can be redeemed, what does that mean for the nature of choice itself? The visions swirling around you show glimpses of possible futures, timelines that branch and converge in patterns too complex for any single consciousness to follow. In some, the healing continues to spread until all of creation resonates with perfect harmony. In others, the transformation unleashes forces that remake reality according to principles that have never been tested. And in still others, the very nature of existence becomes so fluid that the distinction between real and possible, actual and potential dissolves entirely. The shadow of truth falls across the chamber, and you understand that the final revelations will not bring comfort but challenge. The blood of Númenor flows through the Shire, refined into something capable of healing creation's deepest wounds, but that healing has opened questions that may take eons to answer. The calm that settles over the assembled beings is not the peace of completion, but the stillness that comes before transformation too vast to resist or direct. In the growing silence, you sense that the ultimate secrets are preparing to reveal themselves, truths that will not just complete your understanding, but transform it into something entirely new. The night deepens around the heart tree, and with it comes the recognition that some knowledge changes not just what you know, but what you are capable of knowing. The final answers await, but they come with the understanding that receiving them will mean becoming something other than what you were when you began this quest for truth. The chamber falls into a silence so profound that it seems to exist outside of time itself, and in that stillness you feel the approach of truth so vast that the very foundations of reality prepare to shift beneath its weight. The assembled beings of wisdom and power turn their attention to the pool at the chamber's heart, where images begin to form that speak not of past or future, but of the eternal present that underlies all existence. You realize that you are about to witness the ultimate revelation, the secret that transforms everything you thought you knew about the nature of creation itself. The Guardian, who has remained silent during the gathering of wisdom, now steps forward with movements that seem to bend space around them. As they approach the pool, their hobbit appearance begins to shift and transform, revealing layers of being that exist in dimensions your mind struggles to comprehend. The kindly face of an elderly hobbit becomes translucent, showing glimpses of starlight and cosmic fire, of depths that contain entire universes and heights that touch the throne of creation itself. "Behold the final truth," the Guardian says, and their voice carries harmonics that seem to resonate from the music of creation itself. The question of why Frodo could carry the ring has led you through layers of understanding, each one deeper than the last. But now we reach the foundation upon which all other truths rest, the secret that has been hidden since the beginning of time, because to reveal it too early would have made the great experiment impossible. The pool's surface becomes mirror-smooth, reflecting not the chamber above, but scenes that exist beyond the boundaries of physical reality. You see the moment of creation itself, but not as any chronicle has ever described it. Instead of the music of the Ainur beginning in perfect harmony, you witness something far more complex and beautiful. The great song starts with a single voice, pure and perfect, but as it unfolds, it deliberately incorporates themes of dissonance and discord, weaving them into patterns that create beauty beyond what perfect harmony alone could achieve. Eru Ilúvatar did not merely allow Melkor to introduce discord into the music, the Guardian explains, their form now shifting between hobbit and being a pure light. The discord was always part of the design, a necessary component of a creation that would be capable of growth, change, and ultimately, redemption. What appeared to be rebellion was actually collaboration on a scale so vast that even Melkor himself did not understand his true role in the cosmic symphony. The revelation strikes you like lightning, illuminating a landscape you thought you knew, showing features that were always there but hidden in darkness. The entire history of Middle-earth, every conflict between good and evil, every fall and redemption, all of it was not the result of cosmic accident or divine permission of evil, but the deliberate composition of a symphony so complex that it required both harmony and discord to achieve its ultimate beauty. The pool shows you the creation of the rings of power, but now you see them revealed in their true purpose. They were not just artifacts of craft and magic, but instruments in the greatest composition ever attempted. Each ring tested a different aspect of creation's capacity for both corruption and redemption, building toward the moment when the one ring would serve as the final movement in a symphony that had been playing since time began. The One Ring was never meant to be simply destroyed, the Guardian continues, their voice now carrying overtones that seem to come from beyond existence itself. It was designed to be transformed, its accumulated discord resolved into harmony through contact with a soul so pure that it could accomplish what even the Valar could not achieve directly. Frodo's bloodline was not just preserved and refined to resist corruption, it was cultivated to redeem it. A whisper lost in time, you think, remembering words from what feels like eons ago. And suddenly, you understand their true significance. The whisper was not just the echo of ancient secrets, but the very breath of creation itself, the underlying theme that ran through all the apparent chaos and conflict of Middle-earth's history. Every choice made by Frodo's ancestors, every small act of kindness and sacrifice, added its voice to that whisper until it grew into something capable of transforming the loudest discord into perfect harmony. And the whisper grew into a storm across eternity. You breathe, the words carrying power that seems to reshape the chamber around you. The mirror phrase resolves with the force of cosmic truth, revealing how the smallest choices and humblest lives can accumulate into forces capable of transforming the very nature of existence. The Guardian's form stabilizes into something that incorporates both hobbit simplicity and cosmic authority. And you realize that you are looking at the ultimate expression of what the Baggins bloodline was always meant to become. This is the secret that could never be revealed until the great work was complete, they say, their voice carrying the warmth of the Shire and the authority of the throne of creation in equal measure. Frodo was not just the ring-bearer. He was the final note in a composition that began before time itself. His success did not just heal creation's wounds, it completed creation's purpose. The implications cascade through your consciousness with the force of revelation itself. The entire history of Middle-earth was not a struggle between good and evil that good happened to win, but a carefully orchestrated composition designed to prove that even the deepest corruption could be transformed into the highest beauty. Every hero and villain, every victory and defeat, every moment of hope and despair, all of it was part of a symphony so vast that only its composer could hear it in its entirety. The pool shows you the moment of the ring's destruction again, but now you see it as the climax of creation's greatest masterpiece. As the golden band melts in Mount Doom's fires, the discord that has run through all of existence since the beginning of time is finally resolved into perfect harmony. But more than that, the harmony that emerges is greater than what existed before discord was introduced, enriched by the very struggles that seemed to threaten it. This is why the blood of Númenor had to flow through humble veins, the Guardian explains. Their presence now filling the chamber with light that seems to come from beyond all sources. Pride would have made the transformation impossible. Only through 3,000 years of humility, service and love could a soul be refined to the point where it could accomplish what the mightiest of the Valar could not achieve through force. Frodo succeeded not despite his hobbit nature but because of it, because his bloodline had learned to find strength in gentleness and power in service. The chamber around you begins to transform, its crystalline walls becoming transparent to reveal vistas that stretch across all the realms of existence. You see the healing spreading through dimensions you cannot name, touching forms of life you cannot comprehend, bringing harmony to conflicts that have raged since before the foundations of the world were laid. The completion of the great song sends waves of resolution through all of creation, transforming not just Middle-earth but every realm where consciousness exists. But it's the final vision that truly takes your breath away. You see Frodo himself, not as the broken hobbit who sailed west seeking healing, but as he became through his completion of the cosmic symphony. He exists now as a living embodiment of the truth that corruption can be redeemed, his very presence a proof that the greatest darkness can be transformed into the purest light. He moves through realms that exist beyond physical space, his hobbit nature unchanged but elevated to cosmic significance. The Baggins bloodline achieved its ultimate purpose, the Guardian concludes, their form beginning to fade as the revelation reaches its climax, not just to resist evil but to redeem it, not just to preserve good but to transform everything that opposed it into something greater than what existed before the conflict began. Frodo's journey completed creation itself, proving that the music of the Ainur was not just the beginning of existence but its destiny. The chamber fills with harmonies that seem to emanate from the very fabric of reality, and you understand that you are hearing echoes of the completed great song, the symphony that Eru Ilúvatar composed at the beginning of time and that Frodo finally brought to its intended conclusion. Every note of discord has been resolved into harmony, every theme of corruption transformed into beauty, every apparent defeat revealed as necessary preparation for ultimate victory. The climactic revelation settles into your consciousness like starlight, taking root in fertile soil, and you realize that your quest to understand why Frodo could carry the ring has led you to comprehend the very purpose of existence itself. The blood of Númenor flows through the Shire, refined by millennia of humble service into the instrument through which creation achieved its ultimate destiny. The small hobbit who believed he was simply trying to save his beloved homeland actually completed the greatest work ever conceived, transforming the nature of reality itself through the simple act of choosing love over power, service over dominion, hope over despair. The truth illuminates everything that came before and everything that will come after. revealing the War of the Ring not as a historical conflict, but as the climactic movement of creation's greatest symphony, brought to resolution by a gardener's son who never knew he carried the salvation of all existence in his gentle heart. The echoes of cosmic harmony settle into the chamber like settling dust after a great work has been completed. And in the profound stillness that follows, you feel the final pieces of understanding clicking into place with the satisfying precision of a master craftsman's last careful adjustment. The assembled wisdom around you seems to exhale collectively, their ancient forms relaxing as if burdens carried across eons have finally been set down. The ultimate secret has been revealed, but its implications continue to unfold like ripples spreading across the surface of an infinite pond. The Guardian's form solidifies into something that perfectly balances cosmic authority with hobbit humility, and when they speak, their voice carries the contentment of one who has finally been able to share knowledge too vast for any single consciousness to hold alone. The third loop closes with understanding that transforms all previous knowledge. The question of why Frodo could carry the ring has revealed itself to be inseparable from the purpose of creation itself. His success was not just the salvation of Middle-earth but the completion of the great song that began before time itself. The pool at the chamber's heart now reflects not visions of past or future, but images of the present moment, revealing how the completed symphony continues to resonate through all the realms of existence. You see Middle-earth as it exists now, transformed by the healing that spread from Mount Doom's fires. The Shire remains outwardly unchanged, its rolling green hills and cozy hobbit holes preserving the simple beauty that was always their greatest strength. But underneath that familiar surface, currents of renewed life flow with unprecedented vitality. The bloodlines remain. Elrond says, his voice carrying relief that spans millennia. The Baggins line continues, as do the Tooks and Brandybucks and all the other families that carry the hidden heritage of Númenor. But they carry it now with a difference. The cosmic purpose has been fulfilled, the great work completed, and what remains is not burden but blessing. The blood that once carried the potential for ultimate redemption now carries the actuality of it, a living proof that corruption can be transformed into beauty. Gandalf steps forward, his Maya nature now visible without concealment, starlight flowing through his form like water through crystal. The Istari was sent to Middle-earth with a mission that we understood only partially. We knew we were to guide and guard, to prepare for a test that would determine the fate of all creation. But we did not fully comprehend that we were orchestrating not just victory over evil but the transformation of evil itself into a component of greater harmony. The chamber expands around you, its walls becoming windows into the broader implications of what has been accomplished. You see the other realms of Middle-earth, from the deep halls of the dwarves to the high towers of the elves, all of them touched by the subtle but profound changes that the completed symphony has brought. The very laws of physics seem more flexible now, more responsive to will guided by love. Magic flows more freely, but only for purposes that serve life and growth and the flourishing of all conscious beings. Galadriel's presence brings visions of Lothlorien and the other elven realms, showing how even the immortal kindreds have been affected by the cosmic transformation. The straight road to Valinor grows wider with each passing day, she reveals, her voice carrying wonder despite her ancient wisdom. But more significant than easier passage is the change in what awaits at journey's end. Valinor itself has been transformed by the completion of the great song, its perfect harmony enriched by themes that could only exist after discord had been redeemed, rather than simply defeated. Tom Bombadil's laughter fills the chamber with warmth that speaks of forests awakening to new possibilities. The old forest sings with voices it never possessed before. Trees that were ancient when the world was young now share their memories freely, and the boundary between the quick and the growing grows wonderfully thin. Consciousness expands beyond the merely mortal, and even the humblest flower carries within it the capacity for thoughts that span centuries. The visions show you how the transformation has affected every level of existence. In the deep places of the earth, the very stones pulse with renewed life. their crystalline structures resonating with harmonies that were theoretical before Frodo's success made them actual. The seas sing with currents that carry not just water but melodies that speak of healing spreading to shores that exist beyond the physical. Even the sky seems more alive, its blue depths carrying messages between realms that were previously isolated from each other. But it's the effect on the hobbit bloodlines themselves that provides the most profound resolution to your original quest. The families that carry Númenorian heritage no longer bear it as a hidden burden or unconscious gift. Instead, they carry it as a completed work, their very existence a living demonstration that the greatest purposes can be achieved through the humblest means. Samgamgee, you breathe, suddenly understanding another layer of the cosmic design. His bloodline, too, carries the ancient heritage, his ability to give back the ring after wearing it, his capacity to restore the Shire after its defilement. All of it stems from the same refined nobility that enabled Frodo to complete the great work. The Guardian nods, their expression carrying satisfaction that encompasses ages of careful planning. The Ganji line descends from the gardeners of Númenor, those who tended the royal parks and preserved the knowledge of growing things when the kingdom fell. Sam's instinctive understanding of how to heal damaged land, his ability to make things grow that should not thrive, these are not just skills, but expressions of inherited wisdom refined through millennia of humble service. The broader mythology of Middle-earth unfolds before you like a tapestry, finally seen in its completed form. Every element that seemed separate or coincidental is revealed as part of a vast design that encompasses not just the War of the Ring but the entire history of the world. The founding of kingdoms, the forging of alliances, the preservation of knowledge, the cultivation of wisdom, all of it building toward the moment when one small hobbit would prove that the deepest corruption could be transformed into the highest beauty. This is why the Rangers watched the Shire for so long, Strider reveals, his weathered features reflecting contentment that comes from duty finally fulfilled. We were not just guarding a hidden refuge, but protecting the culmination of creation's greatest project. Every choice made by every hobbit, no matter how small it seemed, contributed to the refinement of bloodlines that would ultimately accomplish what armies and magic could never achieve. The chamber fills with presences that seem to exist at the very edge of perception, and you realize that you are witnessing the emergence of new forms of consciousness that the completed symphony has made possible. Beings that exist as pure harmony, thoughts that take on independent existence, emotions that crystallize into entities capable of independent action, but dedicated entirely to the preservation and enhancement of beauty. The resolution encompasses not just understanding, but transformation. You feel your own consciousness expanding, touched by the same forces that have reshaped all of existence. The knowledge you have gained is not just information to be remembered, but wisdom that has become part of your essential nature. You will carry it forward, not as a burden to be borne but as a gift to be shared, helping others understand the true scope of what was accomplished in the fires of Mount Doom. The Age of Secrets ends, the Guardian declares, their form beginning to fade as the revelation reaches its natural conclusion. The truth can now be shared because the work is complete. Let the world know that the humblest hearts can accomplish the greatest deeds, that corruption can be redeemed rather than simply defeated, and that the music of creation is not a fixed composition, but an ongoing symphony to which every conscious being contributes their unique voice. The chamber around you begins to dissolve, its crystalline walls becoming as insubstantial as morning mist, but the knowledge it contained remains firmly rooted in your consciousness. You understand now that your role as seeker of truth has transformed into something greater. You are no longer just a scholar uncovering hidden knowledge, but a herald of cosmic truth, charged with sharing understanding that will help others comprehend their own part in the ongoing symphony of existence. The blood of Númenor flows through the Shire, but it flows now as completed work rather than work in progress. The cosmic experiment has succeeded beyond the wildest dreams of its architects, proving that even the greatest darkness can be transformed into light, even the deepest discord resolved into harmony, even the most fallen consciousness redeemed into beauty that surpasses what existed before the fall. The resolution is complete, but it is not an ending. It is a new beginning. The first movement of a greater symphony that incorporates themes of redemption and renewal that could only exist after the old music had been completed. The final secrets have been revealed, but they point toward mysteries yet to be explored, adventures yet to be undertaken, and wonders yet to be discovered in a creation that has been proven capable of infinite transformation and endless renewal. The crystalline chamber fades around you like a dream surrendering to dawn, and you find yourself standing once again beneath the heart tree, its silver branches catching the first light of morning as if nothing extraordinary has transpired. But everything has changed. The knowledge that flows through your consciousness carries weight that transforms not just what you understand but how you perceive the very nature of existence itself. The assembled beings of wisdom have returned to their appointed realms, but their presence lingers in the way starlight seems closer, in the way the morning breeze carries harmonies that speak of completion and new beginning. Your companions stand beside you in contemplative silence, their own forms seeming somehow more substantial, more present than before. Tom's weathered features reflect depths that speak of burdens finally shared, while Strider's gray eyes hold contentment that comes from witnessing the fulfillment of oaths taken in ages past. The three of you remain together in the growing light, processing revelations that have reshaped the foundations of everything you thought you knew about the nature of reality. How do we carry such knowledge? You ask, your voice barely a whisper in the morning stillness. How do we return to ordinary life knowing what we now understand about the cosmic significance of the humblest choices, the divine purpose hidden in the simplest acts of kindness? Tom's smile carries warmth that seems to emanate from the earth itself, the same way the hobbits carried their heritage for 3,000 years without fully knowing what they bore. Knowledge this vast cannot be held by force, only by allowing it to flow through you like water through a vessel. You become not its owner, but its steward, sharing what can be shared and preserving what must be preserved until the time is right for greater revelation. The morning light reveals the Shire spreading below you in all its familiar beauty, but now you see it with eyes that understand its true significance. Every hobbit hole is revealed as a small temple where cosmic purpose found expression through daily routine. Every garden becomes a shrine where divine will was cultivated through the simple act of tending growing things. The ordinary activities of hobbit life are illuminated as rituals that preserved and refined spiritual heritage across millennia. Strider places a hand on your shoulder, his touch carrying the weight of ancient oaths fulfilled. The rangers have watched and guarded for long ages, knowing that something precious was being preserved, but not understanding the full scope of its significance. Now our vigil enters a new phase. Instead of guarding secrets, we become teachers, helping others understand their own part in the ongoing symphony of existence. As the three of you begin the journey back toward Hobbiton, the landscape around you seems to pulse with renewed life. The streams flow with music that speaks of healing spreading through dimensions you cannot name. The trees lean inward as you pass, their leaves whispering words of welcome and blessing. Even the stones beneath your feet seem to vibrate with harmonies that echo the completed great song. The first hobbits you encounter are going about their morning routines with the same cheerful efficiency that has characterized Shire life for generations. But now you see these simple activities illuminated by their true significance. A hobbit tending his garden is revealed as a priest maintaining a sacred space. Children playing in meadows become celebrants in rituals that preserve joy itself as a component of cosmic harmony. Neighbors sharing morning greetings exchange blessings that carry power accumulated across centuries of choosing kindness over convenience. They know, you realize, watching how the hobbits move through their daily lives with unconscious dignity that speaks of inherited wisdom, not consciously perhaps, but somewhere deep in their hearts. They understand that their simple lives serve purposes, that reach beyond the boundaries of the Shire. The completion of the great song has awakened knowledge that was always present but dormant. The return journey becomes a pilgrimage through transformed landscape, each familiar landmark revealing new layers of meaning. The old mill where your quest began is shown to be positioned at the exact center of spiritual currents that flow through the Shire like underground rivers. The Green Dragon serves not just as a tavern but as a gathering place where the accumulated wisdom of generations mingles with ale and song. Even the most humble hobbit holes are revealed as nodes in a network of sacred spaces that make the entire Shire a single vast temple dedicated to the preservation of life and beauty. At Bag End, you pause before the round green door that marks the culmination of your journey's beginning and ending. The humble hobbit hole that housed both Bilbo and Frodo reveals itself now as the most sacred site in all Middle-earth, the place where cosmic destiny took root in domestic routine. The garden where Sam worked his quiet miracles becomes hallowed ground where the healing of creation itself found expression through the simple act of helping things grow. The knowledge will be preserved, Tom assures you as you stand before Frodo's former home. Not in archives or libraries, though those have their place, but in the living memory of those who understand that the greatest deeds are often accomplished by the humblest hands. The truth will spread as truth always spreads, through stories shared by firelight, through songs sung at festivals, through the thousand small ways that wisdom passes from one generation to the next. The afternoon brings visitors to your small company. Hobbits drawn by curiosity about the scholar who has been asking unusual questions about old families and ancient bloodlines. But as they gather around the garden behind Bag End, you realize that you are not teaching them so much as awakening knowledge they already possess. Their questions reveal understanding that goes deeper than conscious thought, wisdom inherited through bloodlines that carry 3,000 years of accumulated choice. Old Bandobraz Took arrives as the sun begins its descent toward evening, his ancient eyes bright with intelligence that speaks of secrets long held and finally ready to be shared. My family has kept the old stories, he says, settling beside the fire that Tom kindles with words rather than flint, tales that seemed like children's tales but carried truth too precious to lose. Stories of kings who chose to be gardeners, of queens who became bakers, of an entire civilization that discovered nobility in service rather than dominion. The evening unfolds into a gathering that feels both spontaneous and inevitable, as if the completion of the cosmic symphony has created space for smaller harmonies to emerge. Hobbits share family stories that reveal glimpses of hidden heritage, songs that preserve fragments of Númenorian wisdom, and customs that maintain ancient connections to sources of spiritual power they have never consciously understood. As night falls over the Shire, you find yourself surrounded by the living proof of creation's greatest achievement. These simple folk, going about their quiet lives with contentment and grace, represent the ultimate victory, not of good over evil, but of love over power, service over dominion, life over mere existence. Their presence in the world serves as ongoing validation that the great song reached its intended conclusion, and that the cosmic experiment succeeded beyond its architect's wildest dreams. The healing continues, Strider observes, his weathered features softened by firelight and contentment. Every choice made in favor of others, rather than self, every act of kindness performed without thought of reward, every moment when someone chooses to nurture rather than exploit, adds another note to the ongoing symphony. The great song was completed, but the music continues, enriched by themes that could only exist after discord had been redeemed. The fire burns low as the gathering naturally disperses, each hobbit returning to homes that are revealed now as small sanctuaries, where cosmic purpose finds expression through domestic routine. You remain with Tom and Strider, watching stars that seem closer than they have ever been, listening to harmonies that flow through the night air like audible proof of creation's renewal. In the growing quiet, you feel the integration of all you have learned, the transformation of revelation into wisdom that will guide every choice you make in the years to come. The knowledge no longer feels like a burden to be carried, but like a song to be sung. a truth to be lived rather than simply understood. You have been changed not just by what you have discovered, but by the process of discovery itself, transformed from a seeker of hidden knowledge into a bearer of cosmic truth. The night deepens around the heart of the Shire, and with it comes the recognition that healing and recovery are not destinations to be reached but processes to be lived. The wounds of creation have been healed, but the work of maintaining that healing continues through every conscious choice made in favor of life and beauty and the flourishing of all beings. Tomorrow will bring new opportunities to participate in the ongoing symphony, new chances to add your voice to the music that began before time and will continue beyond the ending of the world. The stars wheel overhead in patterns that seem more intricate than before, their light falling upon the Shire with a gentleness that speaks of blessings long awaited and finally bestowed. You sit beneath the heart tree in the deepest hour of night, when the boundary between sleeping and waking grows thin and the whispers of ancient wisdom flow most freely. The cosmic revelations that have reshaped your understanding settle into your consciousness like seeds finding fertile soil, taking root in ways that will continue to unfold for years to come. Around you, the Shire sleeps in peace that runs deeper than simple rest. In every hobbit hole, dreams carry echoes of the completed great song, visions of harmony that touch sleeping minds with contentment that will linger long after waking. Children dream of gardens that bloom with impossible beauty, their subconscious minds processing heritage they will grow to understand in their own time. Adults find their sleep filled with memories that seem to come from lives they never lived, glimpses of nobility that their bloodlines preserved through generations of humble service. The morning approaches with the slow patience of dawn, in a world where time itself has been touched by healing. Mist rises from the valleys like visible prayers, carrying with it the scent of growing things awakened to new possibilities. The old forest stirs with awareness that spans centuries, its ancient trees sharing dreams with the younger growth that surrounds the Shire's borders. Even the stones beneath the earth pulse with rhythms that echo the cosmic harmony, their crystalline structures resonating with frequencies that were purely theoretical before becoming gloriously real. Tom Bombadil rises as the first hint of color touches the eastern sky, his movements carrying the natural grace of one who exists in perfect harmony with the rhythms of earth and season. Time for old Tom to return to his country, he says, his voice carrying warmth that seems to encompass all of creation. The river daughter will be wondering where her husband has wandered, and the old forest needs tending now that it sings with so many new voices. His departure feels like the conclusion of a movement in the ongoing symphony, his presence fading not into absence but into the natural world itself. You watch him walk down paths that seem to rearrange themselves to ease his passage, trees bending to create archways for his passing, flowers blooming in his footsteps. He carries with him the satisfaction of one who has witnessed the fulfillment of purposes older than memory, but also the joyful anticipation of one who knows that even greater wonders await discovery in the days to come. Strider stands as the sky lightens, adjusting his pack with movements that speak of journeys undertaken for duty rather than pleasure. The ranger's watch continues, he says, his weathered features reflecting contentment mixed with renewed purpose. But we watch now with different eyes, protecting not just the Shire but the understanding of what the Shire represents. The knowledge will spread as it should, through stories and songs and the quiet teaching that passes from one generation to the next. He pauses at the edge of the circle of light cast by the dying fire, turning back with expression that carries the weight of ages finally resolved. You have the hardest task of all, scholar. You must find ways to share truth so vast that most minds cannot grasp it all at once, to plant seeds of understanding that will grow in their own time. Trust in the wisdom that chose humble hobbits to accomplish the greatest deed in creation's history. The deepest truths are best shared through the simplest stories. His departure leaves you alone, beneath the heart tree, as dawn breaks fully over the Shire, painting the rolling hills in colors that seem more vivid than any you have seen before. The knowledge you carry feels like living light flowing through your consciousness, transforming not just what you understand but who you are. You have become a bridge between the cosmic and the domestic, the eternal and the temporal, the vast truths that shape reality and the simple choices that determine how those truths find expression in daily life. The first sounds of the Shire awakening drift across the morning air. Roosters crow from farmyards where chickens peck at grain scattered by hands that carry the blood of kings. Smoke rises from chimneys of hobbit holes where fires are kindled by descendants of Númenorian nobility who have learned to find joy in simple warmth. The ordinary activities of hobbit life begin again, but now you see them illuminated by their true significance as ongoing celebrations of the choice to preserve life and beauty through humble service. You rise from your vigil and begin the journey back toward the world of scholars and libraries, of questions yet to be explored and mysteries yet to be unraveled. But you carry with you understanding that will transform every future inquiry, knowledge that reveals how the deepest truths are often hidden in the most obvious places, how the greatest deeds are accomplished by those who never dream of greatness, how the cosmic and the personal interweave in patterns too beautiful for any single mind to fully comprehend. The path leads you past gardens where morning glories climb fences with enthusiasm that speaks of more than simple growth, where roses bloom with colors that seem to incorporate hues from realms beyond the merely physical. Children emerge from hobbit holes to begin their daily adventures, their laughter carrying harmonics that add to the ongoing symphony of creation. Adults greet each other with warmth that transforms simple courtesy into acts of blessing, their voices contributing to melodies that flow through the morning air like audible proof of love's victory over fear. As you reach the borders of the Shire, you turn for one last look at the green hills that hold secrets more precious than any treasure ever hoarded by dragons. The landscape spreads before you like a living testament to the possibility of redemption, proof that even the proudest heritage can be transformed into something greater through the alchemy of humility and service. The blood of Númenor flows through these peaceful hills, but it flows transformed, purified by 3,000 years of choosing others over self, service over dominion, love over power. The morning sun climbs higher, warming your face as you contemplate the journey that lies ahead. You will return to your studies, but armed now with understanding that will illuminate every text you read, every question you investigate, every mystery you seek to unravel. The cosmic truths you have discovered will inform every choice you make, guiding you toward decisions that add harmony rather than discord to the ongoing symphony of existence. In the distance, the song of larks rises from meadows, where hobbit children play games that preserve ancient wisdom in forms too joyful to be called education. The sound carries across the morning air like a benediction, blessing the day and all who dwell within it. You listen until the melody fades into the gentle whisper of wind through grass that grows on soil sanctified by the footsteps of hidden kings who chose to be gardeners. The secret of the ring-bearer has been revealed, but it points toward mysteries yet to be explored, adventures yet to be undertaken, wonders yet to be discovered in a creation that has been proven capable of infinite transformation and endless renewal. The greatest story ever told has reached its conclusion, but it has opened the way for countless smaller stories that will continue to unfold as long as conscious beings choose love over fear, service over selfishness, hope over despair. Like and subscribe if this journey into the hidden mysteries of Middle-earth has touched your heart, and let us know in the comments where in the world you're listening from. There are other secrets waiting to be discovered, other mysteries calling for exploration, other truths ready to be revealed to those who seek them with open hearts and minds prepared for wonder. The blood of the West flows still through quiet places, where simple folk tend gardens and bake bread, utterly unaware that they carry within them the capacity for deeds that echo through eternity. Sleep well, knowing that the greatest truths often wear the humblest faces, that the deepest nobility finds its truest expression in service rather than rule, and that the music of creation continues to play through every choice made in favor of life and beauty and the endless possibility of love's triumph over all that would diminish or destroy. Sweet dreams, and may your rest be filled with the knowledge that even the smallest acts of kindness add their voice to a symphony that began before time and will continue beyond the ending of all worlds. The Shire sleeps in peace, its ancient stones dreaming of the day when all creation will awaken to the truth that was proved in the fires of Mount Doom, that even the deepest darkness can be transformed into light that illuminates paths toward wonders yet to be born.